Thank you. Please remain standing for prayers with Imam Mansour Ahmed.
On behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community Hillingdon, I'm grateful for the invitation to lead the prayer service. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful, all praise belongs to Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the Gracious, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and Thee alone do we implore for help. Guide us in the right path, the path of those on whom Thou hast bestowed Thy blessings, those who have not incurred Thy displeasure, and those who have not gone astray. Our Lord, grant us the ability to speak the truth in happiness and in adversity. Our Lord, every blessing and good thing that we have is solely and purely from You. Evil cannot be attributed to You. We beg You to make us grateful to You. We request You to bestow upon us a gentle heart and a truthful tongue. Our Lord, we have come to Your threshold with our needs. Our thinking is faulty and our planning is weak. We depend on Your mercy. O Allah, guide our hearts towards goodness and establish reconciliation amongst us. Save us from evil deeds and mischief, whether these are manifest or hidden, and guide us to high morals. There is none beside You who can lead us to good morals. We pray, may Allah enable all of us to heal the fractures of society and build bridges of understanding. May all of us reject hatred and play our role in establishing peace at every level. May every single one of us, irrespective of religion or belief, pay heed towards fulfilling each other's due rights so that the world can become a haven of peace and harmony. Our Lord, cleanse our hearts and accept our humble supplications. Amen.
Thank you, and please be seated. So, agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members and ladies and gentlemen. I have apologies from Councillors Batt, Bianco, Goddard, Lachmana, Nelson and Nelson West.
Thank you. And agenda item 2, to receive the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 11th of September 2025. Are these agreed? Thank you. And we turn now to declarations of interest, and note any declaration of interest in any matter before the Council.
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of Mr. Tui, he will be declaring an interest in item 6(3).
Thank you. So straight on then to the Mayor's announcements. So given our September meeting was brought forward, it's been quite some time actually since we were last together at full Council. So there have been numerous events, and I'll try and be brief and pick out a few highlights for you. But I'd first like to start by extending a very warm welcome indeed to some of Brunel University's students of journalism who are here to observe proceedings this evening. So an additional level of scrutiny for all of us. These are among the students responsible for producing the free issue Hillingdon Herald, which you'll see in our libraries and in some other places. Now in October I had the honour of receiving, on behalf of the Borough and in the presence of His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, the Pro Bono Polonae Medal from the Polish Government and Polish organisations in the UK. This reflects our use of the Polish White Eagle insignia on the mayoral chain and our long-standing connections and shared heritage with the Polish Armed Forces and community. Out and about, it's been a great pleasure to meet so many of our health and social care partners and voluntary sector partners and events aimed at raising health awareness and promoting preventative support and improving health outcomes. And I'm very pleased to see that following my introduction, Brunel's Happy to Chat charity is being taken up by commissioners to help tackle social isolation among elderly residents, alongside the further development of the social prescribing offer across our health economy. We also had a very successful Halloween-themed quiz hosted by our friends at Hayes Cricket Club, and don't worry if you missed it, there will be a further opportunity to test your knowledge at a Valentine's-themed quiz in February. And thanks again to the Merrill team for their excellent work in making that all happen. A reminder of the big light switch on tomorrow evening at the Civic Centre forecourt, with lots of good things in store, including a performance from the Hillingdon Music Service. It is, of course, connected to fundraising for my charitable trust, and there will be raffle tickets for sale, so please do purchase a few if you can. And Anne Hay will be around this evening for anyone wishing to do so. And finally, one of the great things I think about the mayoral role is the many opportunities we have to see such good people across the borough doing some incredible work, in a world in which positivity seems to be so thin on the ground. Recently, I was in the beautiful St Anselm's Church in Hayes Town Centre for a Christmas light switch on. And as I watched, I listened to a lovely and ethnically diverse group of carol singers from Dr. Triplets, Hayes Park and Minette schools. And it struck me what a great example of unity these young people were setting. And it's from experiences like these, I think, that we should draw hope and optimism for the future. I certainly do. So on that note, I'll leave it for now. Let's have a good meeting. Thank you very much. So now we come to agenda item 5, which is public question time. Now, I understand that the one or two of the questioners are present, but I'm reading out every question, so you'll be listening to me for a bit, I'm afraid, and then I'll refer to the relevant Cabinet member. So the first question we have is from Mr. Tony Ellis of Kew Ferry Road Northwood, which I'll read now. The Council's Audit Committee papers confirm that leaders were formally warned of key governance weaknesses by CIPFA and auditors in February and March of 2025. This was at the exact time the administration was approving the 25-26 budget. Given the administration was formally warned of key governance weaknesses before the budget was set, I do not understand how it could have been legitimately claimed to have been robust. What accountability has there been for the leadership's failure to act on these warnings, which preceded the £36 million financial collapse? And that's a question, I think, for Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I do thank Mr. Ellis for his question. The Council's budget setting process commences in earnest in the later months of the year, and a budget is recommended to Cabinet in December for public consultation, the product of which is then considered again by Cabinet before it is recommended to Council ordinarily in late February. Whilst we had prior engagement with both CIPFA and the auditors, the full conclusions of their work were not known until after the budget had been approved. The Council did not ignore their warnings. We were previously aware of the needs to modernise our financial systems and processes, and I was very pleased that at that time the Council brought in the necessary expertise which gave rigour to our change programme. The engagement of CIPFA was at the request of the Council, and we had responded immediately to their report and that of the auditors by formalising a governance review improvement plan and the finance modernisation programme, which directly addressed the recommendations they made. Those recommendations did not invalidate the budget. They highlighted areas to strengthen, and the administration put in place a clear plan to manage those risks alongside the budget setting itself. This is entirely consistent with a robust approach. Accountability has also been built into the process. Progress was reported to the Audit Committee in July. The Auditor's Section 24 report was debated by full Council in September, and ongoing oversight is in place with a further update due within 12 months. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And the next question, 5.2, is from Patricia Wardle of Wyclose in Ruislip, and it reads as follows. At the Hara meeting on the 17th of November, the leader stated the EFS bailout application was for the region of 40 million. This figure seems too low to be sufficient to cover both this year's overspend and to replenish the reserves, especially as each month in the last 3 the overspend has increased. can the leader provide a more accurate estimate of the kind of figure that the council has been requesting from the government, given that the £40 million figure doesn't seem anywhere near sufficient? That's another one for Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Patricia Wardle. In fact, we are both right. The £40 million figure is not going to be sufficient in the long term. However, the information I gave to the Hillingdon Association of Residents Association meeting on the 17th of November was accurate. The £40 million I advised that meeting is an application for the year 2024-25 to ensure sufficiency of reserves. The total amount of support we shall need to smoothly transition to the new funding regime will only be known with a reasonable level of confidence in late December, with the publication of the provisional settlement to local authorities. The amount we require will depend upon the extent to which our present level of underfunding is addressed, and then how quickly we move to that new settlement. While we will need substantially less if the government were to eliminate that underfunding in whole next year, we are expecting the government to phase in transition over 3 years, but the details are not yet known. It will be clear for us all to see the extent of our underfunding when the government does make its announcement, and although we expect to receive the full settlement in due course, we will continue for a number of years with ongoing underfunding. After we've received the government's provisional funding settlement in December, the total request for the exceptional financial support will be estimated and will be included within the budget report to be published for consultation in December/January. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And the next question, 5.3, is from Sue Midgley of Howlett's Lane in Ruislip, and it reads as follows. The council predicts it will have a 78 million cumulative deficit in the dedicated schools grant by the end of the year. The statutory override government protection for this deficit expires in March 2028. What is the council's plan to handle the 78.4 million schools deficit when the government override ends, other than hoping for a second bailout? And that's a question for Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Sue Midgley for her question this evening. So, for context, I'll refer to the Dedicated Schools Grant as the DSG within my response, just for clarity. The in-year deficit is largely driven by high needs placement demand and cost pressures which continue to be significantly underfunded in the DSG settlement from the Department for Education. This position means that the cumulative deficit carried forwards to 2026-2027 is forecast at £78.4 million, as she correctly suggests. This deficit is not the result of local decisions in Hillingdon. It reflects a national crisis in high needs funding that councils across the country have been warning about for years. The National Audit Office has already described the SEND system as financially unsustainable. Regardless of political leadership, and Hillingdon's position is entirely in line with the national picture. Locally, the council is taking action, and this has been recognised by the Department for Education. Our in-year high needs deficit is falling year on year currently, and the strategies we have put in place are slowing the rate at which the cumulative deficit grows. But no council, including Hillingdon, can close a structural funding gap of this scale without national reform, because the system itself is set by government. The council, therefore, like many other boroughs, awaits the announcement from the government, and for that reason it's neither realistic or credible to assume that the government will simply allow the statutory override to expire in 2028 without further measures. The County Council network, which has cross-party representation, are calling for a two-pronged approach: national restructuring of the SEND system and a national solution for the historical DSG deficits, including the option of writing them down. That is the only sustainable route forward, and is the view shared across local government. Hillingdon will continue to reduce its in-year deficit, continue changing services, and continue pressing for the national action that is essential for every local authority. What we cannot do, and what no responsible administration would pretend to do, is present a fictional fix-it problem created by a decade of national underfunding and system design failure. The Council is therefore awaiting the Government's announcement on the future of the statutory override and the national plan for DSG deficits as our councils all across the country. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And question 5.4 is from Sally Webb of Lakeside Close in Ruislip and reads as follows. In April 2025, the leader of the Council, Councillor Ian Edwards, personally assured the Ruislip Residents Association that a new, robust risk assessment for Ruislip Lido was a priority and would be picked up very quickly to address the obvious risks of overcrowding. On June the 29th, those risks were realised when emergency services struggled to access the site. Yet, as of November, this vital risk assessment has still not been commissioned, and Council officers have confirmed they are still awaiting responses from external specialists. Given the Council's failure to deliver this urgent safety review, how does it justify prioritising new, non-essential spending at the Lido, such as the £19,200 approved in October to refurbish the pirate ship and the £76,949 approved in September for infrastructure improvements, which includes new picnic tables, all of which will only attract more visitors to a site the Council has not yet made safe? And that's a question for Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to Sally Webb for the question. The Council is absolutely clear that the safety of visitors to Ruislip Lido is a priority, and work on the full risk assessment is already underway. This is a complex piece of work involving independent specialists, and it has been progressing through the required stages. In the meantime, the Council has not waited for the final document to act. Practical mitigation measures are already being identified. Alongside the external review, the on-site manager is also undertaking enhanced health and safety training, strengthening the day-to-day risk management at the Lido. This is responsible long-term capacity building and not a shortcut. In respect of the investment decisions cited, these works are not about attracting more visitors, they're about ensuring that existing facilities, including the pirate ship play structure, comply with British safety standards and remain safe for the families who already use them. Leaving ageing equipment in place without refurbishment would pose an entirely different set of risks. Similarly, the Christmas-funded infrastructure improvements are primarily focused on the continuing safe operation of the Ruislip Lido Railway Society, and these are maintenance and safety enhancements, not non-essential extras. It is important that concerns about safety are based on facts and not assumptions. The Council is acting responsibly, methodically and transparently to ensure Ruislip Lido continues to remain both safe and enjoyable for all Hillingdon residents.
Thank you. And the next question, 5.5, is from Daniel O'Neill of Ashburton Road in Ruislip and reads as follows. The Month 6 Budget Monitoring Report identifies a £4 million adverse impact on the budget caused by a review of the asset sales programme. Can the Cabinet member confirm if this £4 million deficit exists because the administration had already spent or committed the money before the assets were actually sold, and why such a large sum spent at risk before the funds were actually secured in the Council's bank account? And it's Councillor Lavery again, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to Daniel O'Neill for the question. No is the short answer, but I'll give a slightly longer version. The £4 million adjustment does not exist because the administration spent the money it didn't have. That is simply inaccurate. The pressure comes from technical change in eligibility from one capital receipt, not irresponsible spending. The receipt itself remains real and will support the Council through EFS repayment. Crucially, the expenditure concerned is a necessary investment, reducing EHCP pressures, lowering the DSG deficit by some £2.5 million, and modernising the Council's financial and Oracle systems. Any responsible administration would make these improvements because delaying them would only worsen the long-term outlook. In short, the money is not at risk, but targeted investments alongside a technical... this is a targeted investment which some would seek to dramatise for their own political effect. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. The final public question, 5.6, is from David Eddington of Highgate Crescent and it reads as follows. The Chrysalis Fund criteria presented to the Resident Services Select Committee in March 2025 explicitly state that the fund cannot fund events, activities or furniture and equipment. Can the Cabinet member explain why he subsequently approved £19,200 for playground equipment refurbishment and £76,949 for a project that includes new picnic tables in direct contradiction of the programme's published rules, and further explain when and by whom the decision was taken to increase his portfolio's Chrysalis budget from the £1 million stated in his June capital release report to the £3 million stated in his September report, given the Council's current severe financial constraints. And that's Councillor Lavery again, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to David Eddington for the question. The Chrysalis programme has operated successfully more than 20 years and has always funded long-term improvements to community assets. The suggestion that playground refurbishment or permanent outdoor infrastructure contradicts the programme rules is simply incorrect. The guidance is published on the Council website and explicitly lists playground refurbishment as an eligible category, and the distinction in the criteria is between short-life movable items and long-term fixed assets. Refurbished play structures and permanent picnic benches fall squarely into the latter category and are maintained by the Council for many years. In relation to budget figures, and I did give this clarification at Cabinet last week, the £3 million figure quoted in a June capital release report was a straightforward administrative error when a separate £2 million infrastructure budget was incorrectly combined with the Chrysalis total. This was identified and has been formally corrected in the Q2 budget monitoring report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and that concludes public question time. And we now proceed to agenda item 6, which is a report of the Head of Democratic Services, and I'm going to call Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Agenda item 6.1 informs Council of the urgent decisions taken since we last met. I just summarise these as three matters relating to contracts purchasing, 2 for the acquisition of home, and 1 is the publication of the Cabinet decision taken last month around the disposal of the Lobster Pot car park, not for the receipts, but for the construction of 2 care homes, which will reduce our long-term care costs to the authority. Item 6.2 advises the Council of the change of political groups and makes recommendations about the changes of appointments following Labour's reduction in numbers and the growth in the Hillingdon Independent Party. Item 6.3 is notes is for the recommendation of the Dan Toohey to be the head of the Labour head of legal and monitoring officer. This followed a selection process earlier in the week. Mr. Toohey brings with him considerable experience as a head of legal service and also with experience at senior level as a monitoring officer. He has been in post with the Council since February 2025. I am delighted that he has applied for the job and that he has been successful, and I have no hesitation in recommending his appointment to Council. At 6.4, this is asking Council to agree the recommendations that we appoint a second independent person and extend the contract of the existing. And at item 6.5, this is to note the change in Cabinet following the replacement of Councillor Goddard by Councillor Lavery, the finance lead, and the appointment of Councillor Bridges to replace Councillor Lavery's former portfolio. I wish at this point to place on record my thanks to Councillor Goddard for his considerable service over a very difficult period leading the financial portfolio. It has been exceedingly challenging. We knew some months ago when he wasn't going to be standing again next election. Smooth succession plans had to be put in place. Councillor Lavery has been working alongside him for a number of months now, and that succession is taking place smoothly. I wish to place on record, as I say though, my thanks to him for his service not only to the Council but to the residents of this borough. I therefore move those recommendations and noting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. And it's seconded by Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second.
Okay, any other debate? Any other speakers? Apparently not. Is that item agreed then? So we come then to agenda item 7, polling district and polling places review. Again, it's Councillor Edwards to speak on that one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If I might remind colleagues that back in last year, November of 2024, we considered the review of the polling districts as recommended by the returning officer. The returning officer was invited to look at, again, a number of the proposed polling stations because we continue to rely upon schools and the feedback from the public, and it's rightly so, that we should avoid the use of schools wherever possible. I'm very, very pleased that further work has been undertaken, and as a consequence, the number of schools proposed to be used in the future has been reduced from 11 down to 4. I think that is commendable practice. It is a pity we can't make alternative arrangements for those other 4, but I'm very satisfied that they are necessary. And I therefore recommend the changes to the polling stations as listed within the report at item 7. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And that's seconded by Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am again happy to second.
Any other speakers? Is that item agreed? Thank you. We move on then to agenda item 8, which is the annual performance report, and we've got once again Councillor Edwards to move.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Mayor. The performance report of 2024-2025 has been submitted to Cabinet and also to select committees, but not to Council, and I believe that to be an omission. The performance report is a record of demand for services managed by and delivered by our officers on our behalf. It does provide some comparative performance for other local authorities that should reassure our residents about the quality and value for money of our services. The report presently doesn't contain sufficient information for me on the value for money comparisons with other authorities, and I have asked for an additional report to be brought to Cabinet, which will happen when we next meet, and that then brought into Council in January. The purpose of the report is to inform residents of the work the Council undertakes to support them, the residents. It should give them the confidence in our performance in relation to other authorities and to identify for us areas for improvement. In the covering report at paragraph 12, it notes the 50% increase in homelessness presentations since 2022-23 and a 30% increase in the cost of interim accommodation. These are one of the factors driving our overspends. And in paragraph 14, it evidences the collapse of the private rented sector and the significant increase in households approaching the council due to the threat of homelessness. The highlights in the report themselves, at page 7 or slide 7, evidence of that housing crisis. At pages 16 through to 18, comments on the condition of our roads, something that we rarely speak about in the council other than the amount that we spend, but it shows the state of our roads in comparison to other boroughs. Slide 24, the improvement in the timeliness of our housing repairs. Slide 30, the substantial rise over the 2 years of the sum of high-cost residential placements for children. Slides 52 to 54, the high scores adult social care users give to this authority in both terms of quality of life and control over their daily lives. But an area for improvement is at slide 53, as their satisfaction score seems out of line with the other 2. And at 83, another unusual issue that we rarely talk about in this council, reports the increase in the amount of procurement going on locally, increasing opportunities for our local businesses. It does highlight areas for improvement, and I won't hide from those. Slides 11 and 12, planning. How timeliness could be improved. We will be looking at that. Slide 36, the youth offending rate team. The re-offending rate is high compared to other authorities, but for us it is from a very low base, as the other slide shows. At slide 43, the percentage of our 16 and 17-year-old youth who are not in employment, education or training is uncomfortably high. At slide 67, comparative levels of antisocial behaviour have worsened over the last 2 years. And at slide 70, our dry cycling recycling rate needs to be improved. It is quite easy in this chamber to concentrate on the knockabout, and not often enough do we actually speak about the thoroughly good work that is being undertaken by our officers on our behalf, delivering for the residents of this borough. The report does begin to clarify that and bring some evidence that residents can be assured that they have a council that serves them well and exceptionally good value. I commend the report to council. Thank you.
Thank you. And and that's seconded by Councillor Tuckwell, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I am very happy to second this report this evening, as the annual performance report reflects the hard work across this council. I would like this evening to focus on homes, communities and resident services, where we continue to meet rising challenges. As the leader has mentioned, homelessness in Hillingdon has risen over 50% since 2022-23, with temporary accommodation costs increasing sharply. Higher property prices and our role as a port authority continue to contribute to this demand. Through our temporary accommodation strategy, we are preventing homelessness with proactive landlord engagement, capping nightly accommodation costs and securing 100 new leases and expanding private rented placements. Mr. Mayor, despite this great work, demand for temporary accommodation is relentless, as we see across London and the UK. But our housing service has completed over 3,000 repairs this year, and the wider directorate, including housing management, maintenance, tenancy engagement and safety compliance, have earned the second highest rating from the regulator of social housing, C2. This reflects safe, well-maintained homes and a strong service standards, but there is still more to do. Our planning and development services remain strong, ensuring that we have safe, well-designed developments while supporting local economic growth. Initiatives such as Hillingdon Takes Off conference were connecting over 100 local businesses to jobs, skills and apprenticeships, whilst our vision for Uxbridge and Hayes town centres is driving regeneration and investment. We are also helping Hillingdon businesses access opportunities in Heathrow and our data centre supply chains, creating more jobs and supporting a thriving economy. Finally, I would like to place on record my thanks to our officers for their dedication and hard work in making these achievements possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moved and seconded, so open to other speakers. I've got Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to speak on the annual performance report for 24-25, which offers a clear and detailed account of how Hillingdon Council is performing across its core service areas, with a continued emphasis on putting residents first. This report reflects a council that is actually responding to significant challenges, rising demand, financial pressures and evolving community needs, while maintaining a strong commitment to service quality, accountability and resident well-being. Despite these pressures, the report shows clear progress. In housing, we've delivered over 400 new homes with a major regeneration projects underway at Hayes Town Centre, RAF Uxbridge and Grays Road. Our housing repairs service has improved significantly, completing more than 3,000 repairs and earning a positive inspection rating. On homelessness, the borough has faced a 50% increase in presentations since 22-23, yet we have taken decisive action. Through the temporary accommodation strategy, we've introduced price caps, secured 100 new leases and are on track to deliver 245 new council homes for those in need. These measures are helping us manage demand and protect public funds. The report further highlights progress in sustainability and infrastructure. Our highways maintenance continues to outperform London averages, and we've secured £7.5 million to install over 1,600 new electric vehicle charging points, supporting greener travel and improved air quality. These are targeted measures to help all communities, unlike the war on motorists being waged by Sadiq Khan and City Hall. Mr. Mayor, community engagement remains strong. Library visits are among the highest in London, with 37% of adults using our libraries compared to 29% across London. Service requests for parks and trees have fallen, showing that proactive maintenance is working. These achievements demonstrate resilience, innovation, and a clear focus on improving quality of life for residents. This report is not a collection of figures, it is evidence of the hard work by our officers and an administration committed to delivering residents for Hillingdon residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Any other speakers on this item? No? Okay. Is that item agreed then? So, on to agenda item number 9, the proposed Article 4 direction, and I believe we've got Councillor Tuckwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am this evening presenting a report seeking approval for a borough-wide immediate Article 4 direction. This will remove permitted development rights for the conversion of family homes into small houses of multiple occupation, HMOs for up to 6 residents. Currently, landlords can convert a single dwelling into a small HMO without planning permission across most of Hillingdon. Whilst those earlier restrictions are important, the pressures posed by HMOs today now affect the entire borough. The evidence is clear and action is needed. Mr. Mayor, some may criticise the council for the time it has taken to bring this forward, and I do hear those criticisms, but this direction has been developed carefully and deliberately, based on strong evidence that ensures that it is effective and robust if legally challenged. This is exactly the kind of considered and responsible approach that this Conservative administration is committed to. Yet again, acting decisively and in the best interests of residents, not rushing for politically motivated headlines. Mr. Mayor, the evidence is compelling. There are around 2,500 HMOs in Hillingdon. That's nearly 9% of the private rented sector. 30% of these HMOs have at least one serious housing hazard, 3 times the borough average. Antisocial behaviour linked to HMOs is 6 times higher than other private rented properties, particularly in Useley, Yedding, Belmore, Wood End, West Drayton and Heathrow villages. Many HMO-related complaints could not be acted upon as permitted development rights tied this council's hands, the gap between what our residents rightly expect and what national legislation allows. Mr. Mayor, this Article 4 direction does not ban HMOs in Hillingdon. Landlords can still apply for planning permission, but it will give this council the tools to ensure HMO development meets standards, protects communities and maintains fairness. Publicising the direction is inexpensive, and experience from other boroughs shows compensation claims are very unlikely. We know this direction will add some workload to planning enforcement and the planning service. That is to be expected, and resourcing demand will be closely monitored. Mr. Mayor, this is a prudent, responsible step, ensuring that we continue to put residents first, rather than letting unmanaged HMO conversions create problems for the future. Mr. Mayor, a borough-wide approach is crucial. Uneven controls which simply shift problems from one area to another. Evidence shows HMO and their impacts are present in every ward in this council, so a consistent borough-wide approach is both fair and necessary. Mr. Mayor, this direction also works hand in hand with the borough-wide additional HMO licensing consultation, which we know is open until the 11th of January. Additional HMO licensing will focus on management standards. Tonight's Article 4 direction ensures we have planning oversight. Together, they provide a coordinated approach to improving housing standards and protecting our communities. Mr. Mayor, this is not about punishing landlords or restricting housing supply. This is about managing housing growth responsibly, protecting residents and keeping the character of our neighbourhoods, something that this Conservative administration has always taken pride in. Mr. Mayor, I would like to place on record my thanks to Julia Johnson, our Director of Planning, and to the officer teams who have worked hard to gather substantial evidence and prepare this report. This important work ensures that this council continues to put residents first, and I therefore move the recommendations as set out and commend this immediate Article 4 direction to council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Is that seconded? Councillor Edwards.
Mr Mayor, I second and reserve my rights. Thank you.
So other speakers, we've got Councillor Ahmed Bolana, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Council has not hesitated to act where action has been required. We have previously introduced measures to address the rising number of HMOs, especially in areas where their concentration increased due to the accommodation pressures linked to Brunel University, demonstrating our determination to protect the integrity and stability of our neighbourhoods. I am pleased to see Councillor Tuckwell driving this agenda forward with renewed determination, prioritising the safety of our residents and ensuring that these protections are rolled out borough-wide. It is important to highlight that this Council is taking swift, decisive action, implementing these changes now and steering clear of the needless red tape that can cost valuable time and weaken our response. Although HMOs contribute to the overall housing supply for some individuals, the notable rise in such properties over the past year has been a source of concern for many residents, and we are committed to working collaboratively to address these issues. We recognize that HMOs play a role in meeting housing needs. However, the proportion with poor conditions is significantly higher than in the broader private rented sector. This means that in areas with a concentration of HMOs, residents may experience greater issues such as antisocial behavior, fly tipping, and noise disruption, as well as difficulties in building strong, connected communities. By working together with residents, landlords, and local partners, we can ensure that standards are improved and neighbourhood cohesion is strengthened across Hillingdon. As with many of my colleagues, I have been approached by long-standing residents in my ward, Colum and Cowley, who have expressed genuine concerns about both the scale of HMOs and the way certain properties are being managed, and the effect this is having on our community. It is encouraging to see Hillingdon Conservatives once again taking immediate, decisive steps to safeguard our residents, and I wholeheartedly support the recommendation to implement the new Article 4 direction, demonstrating our firm commitment to putting our residents first. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We now have Councillor Davis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm standing here tonight because we are facing in Hillingdon, and especially in my ward of Charville, is not a minor irritation or a passing inconvenience. It's a serious, accelerating breakdown in the sustainability, safety and basic standards that every resident has the absolute right to expect from the place they call home. Far too long, hard-working families have watched their quiet, dependable streets change almost overnight as unlicensed HMOs appear like mushrooms after the rain. Unregulated, unmonitored and completely uninvited. Homes that were built for stable families are being carved up into cramped, chaotic, unsafe units. And not because compassion, not because of need all the time, but because of a handful of landlords that decided to profit outranks the people and our residents. With no fault for the neighbours, with no fault for our community, and certainly no fault for the residents who have invested their lives, their savings and their trust in the Hillingdon housing market. And let's be clear, our residents have had enough. Enough of the noise, the antisocial behaviour, enough of the overflowing bins and the rubbish across our pavements, enough of strangers coming and going at all hours, day and night, enough of landlords treating our local streets like a personal cash machine, and assuming that this council will look the other way. In Charville, this is not theory, this is a daily reality. Streets that once felt calm, safe and neighbourly are now strained, overcrowded, neglected, declining standards that have been unthinkable. This would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Family homes, true homes that were meant for our residents, are being changed, thrown aside for someone to profit. And of course, Mr. Mayor, this is not all landlords, but we have seen a large increase of the opposite effect. And this Conservative administration will not stand by and allow that to continue. Mr. Mayor, I've reviewed this report and I want to thank our officers for their diligent forensic work, ensuring every safeguard, every check, every legal requirement is watertight. But it is the due diligence that allows us to act with strength and certainty. And this is exactly why we differ from the Labour councils in this borough. Labour-run Ealing, which stumbled ahead with half-formed, half-legal schemes that left their residents exposed and their council exposed to humiliating legal claims. And unlike the Hillingdon Labour Group, as well, who tried to push through a reckless and ill-prepared plan, would have left this borough wide open, powerless and at risk. We took
Would you wind up, please, Councillor Bridges?
Councillor
I beg your pardon. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. We took responsible action, and I support this motion.
Stop. It's been a long day. All right. So we actually have Councillor Bridges now. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak in full support of the introduction of this borough-wide Article 4 direction, having seen the impact on both my own ward of Hillingdon East and across Hillingdon as a whole. This is not about banning houses in multiple occupation, which in some circumstances provide a vital housing option in some specific circumstances. It's about restoring balance. It's about protecting the character and the amenity of our communities. Mr. Mayor, the facts are clear. Houses in multiple occupation now account for more than 8% of our private rental market, and 30% of these homes contain significant safety hazards, 3 times higher than the national average. We've seen a sharp rise in antisocial behaviour linked to HMOs, with 151 incidents per 100 HMO dwellings compared to just 25 in the wider private rented sector. Fly tipping, noise and poor waste management are blighting neighbourhoods, and our enforcement teams are overwhelmed because current permitted development rules allow conversions without proper planning oversight. Tonight, Mr. Mayor, this Conservative administration is taking decisive action, putting residents first, by requiring planning permission for all new small HMO conversions. We will close the gap between community expectations and outdated legislation. This Article 4 direction gives us the tools to prevent over-concentration, uphold housing standards and protect family homes, while still allowing well-managed HMOs to meet genuine housing needs. We are enhancing this with additional licensing proposals and a robust housing strategy to raise standards, tackle rogue landlords and support responsible ones. This is a balanced, evidence-led approach that puts residents first, safeguards neighbourhoods and ensures fairness across this borough. I urge all colleagues to back this measure. It is the right step to protect our communities today and for the future.
Okay, before I come back to Councillor Edwards, any other speakers? Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but it is difficult to hear such things for such a good thing, which seem to be slightly deluded about the reality when a motion went in 18 months ago from the Labour group, Councillor Punja, calling for things to happen, and it took so long, and then it's considered, apparently. But actually, the Labour group, through many years, has been calling to challenge rogue landlords and ask for licensing schemes, and this is the right thing, but it is too late. And so my question to the administration is, how are they going to work with the residents of Heathrow villages who've had their villages completely decimated by an oversaturation of HMOs? In West Drayton, in Wood End and other areas, it is the right thing to pause and stop some overdevelopment and oversaturation of HMOs. It is the right thing to ensure that rogue landlords play by the rules. But we have communities now that have been decimated by problems which the administration have been made aware of for a number of years from this Labour group. They've been completely ignored, and residents need greater support to ensure that we can restore communities, not just stop the very worst of what we've seen.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Any other speakers before we come back to Councillor Edwards? No other speakers? Okay, Councillor Edwards, you seconded, reserve your right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I undoubtedly support the recommendations to bring in the immediate direction, Article 4. I also recognise the comments being made by Councillor Mathers. It has been an issue that has been hanging around for a long period of time. But we have also seen what happens when you rush. And we have seen that in other authorities who have had to step back in the face of legal challenge. There is, unfortunately, a lengthy legal process to go through. And it isn't just a case of us claiming that there are problems. We can do that loudly, and we do so commonly. But what we have to do is evidence those problems. And that is what takes time, it takes study, and it takes cost. Whilst I do recognise that it is going to be welcomed and supported, I do just make the passing observation that we are having to make this emergency Article 4 designation as a consequence of the planning regime not being properly addressed. The present government is taking its mind to the changing of planning and removing powers from local authorities. And actually there was an opportunity for them to get behind local authorities and delegate more powers to us to deal with these sorts of matters. It's unfortunate they haven't. It's unfortunate the Secretary of State can now veto this. That is one of the risks that is highlighted in the paper. I very much hope he doesn't do so. But it isn't all about us sitting on our hands. It is a case of the complex time and cost of securing this outcome successfully to minimise the risk. But I also point out the fact that we are operating within a legislative regime that could be improved by the government of the day. Thank you.
Okay. So back to Councillor Tuckwell as the mover of the motion, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do a little bit of wrapping up, and I'd like to thank colleagues for some very positive comments about this Article 4, immediate Article 4 direction, and certainly sharing insights about the impact in Colin and Cowley and the impact in Charvel, and as we heard in other wards as well. You know, as Councillor Bridges mentioned in his address, you know, tonight is about giving this council additional tools and additional scrutiny to have proper planning oversight. And I will say this is an immediate Article 4. I hear Councillor Mathers, and I said in my address I heard the criticisms, but I won't be taking lectures from the Labour group, because this administration, through the due diligence and the absolute granularity of evidence that we've collected, and the wards that I referenced in my remarks as well also include the wards that Councillor Mathers referenced. Our due diligence in collecting this information and evidence has enabled this administration to accelerate the Article 4 by 12 months. We would have had to wait until November 2027, giving 12 months notice, if we hadn't collected the additional evidence required to make this immediate Article 4 designation robust and up to legal challenge. So I'm really pleased with the comments that we had today. I'm hoping that this chamber will support the introduction of an immediate Article 4, because it is about putting our residents first. We've seen what HMOs can do to our communities, and this is about putting the controls in place that will give this administration the opportunity to control how our HMOs behave in our societies and in our communities. Overlay on top of that the additional licensing, which will be coming to Cabinet in February. We will have the tightest possible controls of HMOs of pretty much any other borough in London. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Is that agreed? Thank you. So on now to members' questions. The first one I have is 10.5. Councillor Higgins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet member please provide an update for the Jocosians' arrival into Hillingdon and outline how the council is managing to support them and support requirements?
Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Me again. And thank you, Councillor Higgins, for your question. Hillingdon, as the borough hosting Heathrow Airport, experiences higher demand for housing than most areas. Since July 2024, 621 Chagosians, or 166 households, have arrived seeking our help, and currently there are 100 Chagosian families in temporary accommodation. With placements costing roughly £20,000 per household per year, this represents a potential full-year pressure for this council of £2 million falling to local taxpayers. This council is actively managing support, providing housing, welfare assistance, and helping families access education and local services. But this support can last up for 12 months, yet the government will only fund us for the first 10 days. Hillingdon is a welcoming borough and will continue to support those who arrive. But it is unacceptable that councils are left to shoulder these pressures alone. This is a national policy responsibility, and central government decisions are creating long-term financial pressures that are not matched with sustainable funding. The national media have repeatedly highlighted the strain on councils, and in particular port authorities like Hillingdon. Our experience reflects those media reports, and whilst Hillingdon continues to deliver safe accommodation and appropriate support for Chagosian families, the financial burden cannot continue to fall on Hillingdon residents. We will be pressing government to provide adequate sustained funding so that our council can meet these responsibilities without unfairly burdening Hillingdon taxpayers. Hillingdon remains committed to supporting those who arrive, but it is only right that central government funds its national policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you a supplementary, Councillor Higgins?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member provide an update on any expected arrivals into Hillingdon and how they will be supported?
Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Higgins, for your follow-up. Next week, we are expecting a further 32 Chagosian families to arrive in Hillingdon, adding an additional £600,000 pressure to local taxpayers. As I outlined in my earlier answer, the Council continues to provide safe accommodation and full support to Chagosian families, including housing, welfare assistance and access to local services. Mr. Mayor, these pressures are significant, yet government funding covers just the first 10 days. It is unsustainable for councils to shoulder the costs of a national policy. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Higgins, we will keep pressing the government to provide adequate sustained funding so our council can meet these responsibilities without unfairly burdening Hillingdon taxpayers. Hillingdon remains committed to supporting those who arrive, but it's only right that central government properly funds its national policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've got question 10.10, Councillor Mand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At September's full council, the Cabinet Member dismissed exceptional financial support as merely an accounting adjustment and claimed residents would not shoulder the burden. Yet the last so-called accounting adjustments, totalling £14.1 million since 2014, led directly to cuts in services, the sale of community assets, and still this administration cannot balance its books. Does the Cabinet Member agree that this latest accounting adjustment in the form of exceptional financial support will also be paid by the residents of Hillingdon, especially as every past adjustment has resulted in higher costs, fewer services, and deeper financial crisis for this borough? Yes or no?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Mann for his question. No, EFS is a result of spending pressures. And let's be clear, the question somehow pretends it creates a financial pressure. It does not. EFS exists precisely because national pressures, including temporary accommodation costs, adult social care costs, costs of children's services and inflation, have created financial challenges for councils across the country of all political colours. Without EFS, the burden would fall immediately and far more sharply. So the real reason is not the accounting treatment, is the financial environment councils are operating in. And this council is being honest, transparent and responsible in managing those pressures and doing so within the legal mechanisms provided. I will also provide some additional context to the comment made by the former Cabinet member at September's meeting. The comment made previously referred specifically to the capitalisation direction element of EFS. This is an accounting mechanism applied after expenditure has already been incurred to ensure that councils can lawfully manage costs from the proper accounting framework. It is not a new bill falling on residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mann, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mr. Mayor. The Chief Finance Officer at November's Corporate Resources and Infrastructure Select Committee said that any shortfalls in adverse movements will be made up in further EFS applications over the next 2 years. Could the new Cabinet Member for Finance and Transformation confirm or deny that to be true? And if true, what will be the cost to residents, and what plans have been made to ensure that beyond the newly devised fair funding settlement from the Labour government, that this council is able to rebuild its reserves?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Councillor Manns, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. The comments of the Chief Financial Officer reflect our current position. The current budget is being worked on, and until that work is complete, I'm not in a position to provide any further information. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is 10.1 from Councillor Gardner.
First, can I clarify, we're not sitting here by choice, but at least I'm on the left. I'll be quiet.
Let's hear from Councillor Gardner. Thank you.
Over the past few months, young people have been seen and heard in the streets and parks, igniting large fireworks that are clearly meant for organised display events only. Can the Cabinet Member please outline the process for licensing the sale of fireworks, and in particular, if there is a requirement for recording who purchases them?
Thank you. Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Gardner for her question. Unusually from behind me, so it's quite a strange experience. Fireworks can only be sold to people aged 18 or over, and only from premises licensed by the Council Trading Standards Team to store fireworks safely. There are currently 33 of those in Hillingdon Borough. There is no legal requirement for retailers to record people who buy ordinary consumer fireworks. Record keeping only applies when selling large quantities or selling to another business, such as a professional display company. The enforcement of illegal use, including young people setting off fireworks in streets and parks, is the responsibility of the Metropolitan Police. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gardner, do you have a supplementary question? No supplementary, thank you. So then we move on then to question 10.7. That's from Councillor Ahmed Walana, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could the Cabinet Member please explain the benefits to the Council and residents of the recent purchase of the borough's care home?
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ahmed Walana, for your question. The acquisition of the borough's care home is exactly the kind of forward-thinking, strategic action residents should expect from this administration, committed to putting residents first. With Hillingdon's population growing, particularly among residents aged 65 and over, we must plan ahead, secure local capacity and keep control of costs. Bringing the boroughs back into council ownership achieves all of this. The local care market is extremely tight, with over 97% of beds occupied at all times. As a result, more than 250 Hillingdon residents are placed outside the borough, away from their families and support networks. That is not the standard of care or choice that we want for our community. By taking back the boroughs, we are ensuring local beds for local people delivered close to home. And where the market simply cannot keep pace with rising demand, this administration is not afraid to act. We have established our own care company and are completing CQC registration to upgrade the boroughs from residential care to full nursing care, strengthening provision for our most vulnerable residents, and supporting the wider health and care system across Hillingdon. Financially, this is a prudent decision. From year 3 onwards, operating the boroughs ourselves will deliver significant savings per bed, helping protect the adult social care budget at a time when councils across the country are facing unsustainable pressures. The borough shows an administration willing to act decisively in the interest of residents, and we fully intend to build on this success, allowing more Hillingdon residents to stay in their borough, close to their family, and enjoy all the things they are familiar with, and allowing them to continue to enjoy all the services they enjoy from their local council.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Ahmed Ballard, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Are there any plans for similar purchases in the future?
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed Wallana. I'm pleased you asked. Yes, there are. I've already said that we've established our own care company, and we are purchasing the council car park, refurbing the council car park, which we aim to have a nursing care facility with a total of 162 beds. This addresses the high demand for more dementia nursing. Increasing adult social care places for our residents whilst reducing council's reliance on costly private sector provision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So on to question 10.9, but that's from Councillor Punja, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 25-26 budget relies on delivering £38.8 million of in-year savings to remain balanced. Yet by month 6, up to £20.2 million is either at risk, undeliverable, or still at an early stage. The Strategic Risk Register presented at the November Audit Committee states plainly that a key driver in this forecast overspend is that the savings programme is not on track, and mitigations will not be sufficient to offset this. Does the Leader of the Council still maintain that Hillingdon has a balanced and lawful budget when the savings essential to its in-year legality are already failing under this administration?
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Punja, for your question. Yes is the answer to that question. The Council does absolutely maintain that the 25-26 budget was lawfully balanced when it was set, and it remains a lawful budget now. The question itself seems to misunderstand how local authority finance works. A budget is determined on the information available at a point of time and at the point the budget is approved. In February 2025, the budget met legal tests. The pressures we are now seeing, many of which are being experienced nationally across all councils, emerged during the year, which is precisely why robust in-year monitoring exists. And we heard in an earlier question the impact of the Chagosian arrivals. There is no way when setting the budget we could have predicted the arrival of 30 households in the coming few weeks. The legal test is not whether every saving is fully delivered at month 6. Few councils in the country would pass that test. The question now is whether the Section 151 officer considers there to be sufficient resources to meet the expenditure over the full year. The month 6 report is unambiguous. The Section 151 officer is not minded to issue a Section 114 notice at this time. Government guidance explicitly allows him, the Section 115 officer, to take into account the reasonable likelihood of exceptional financial support. And the Council is in substantive, constructive discussions with the Department. So while the question attempts to imply illegality, that simply reflects a misunderstanding of both the law and the role of the Section 151 officer. The budget was lawful when set, and the Council continues to operate lawfully now. This administration is dealing with the financial challenges transparently and professionally, and within the legal framework that some deemed that seem determined to misinterpret, which is why residents know that Hillingdon's Labour group should not be allowed anywhere near this council's finances. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. A supplementary question? Go ahead.
Thank you. Given the month since budget monitoring report shows a £36 million overspend and Cabinet just approved another single tendered contract to Grant Thornton, who we are told originally was chosen for speed over SIPFA, yet the finance modernisation plan still missed its October deadline, does the leader now regret not insisting on an open tender that could have demonstrated value for money? Can the leader also explain why no payments to Grant Thornton have appeared in the over 500 register since May 2025 and confirm whether Council will finally stop extending this contract if the plan is not completed within 4 months, especially when, in Councillor Tuckwell's own words, the Council has basically run out of money?
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I mean, this is really quite a ludicrous continuation of this line of questioning. Grant Thornton are a thoroughly respectable organisation, exceedingly experienced, and have been engaged working with this council over a period now, helping us to put our finances right. They have the right experience, the right expertise to help us with our migration and to Oracle Cloud. The fact that they know our authority, that they know the systems, they know the issues, they actually have the relationships with the people, make them ideally suited to take up this piece of work immediately. What the Labour group are arguing for is that we go through a lengthy tendering process that delays the inevitable fix that we will require, adding to our burden and delivering no change, because Grant Thornton would be the people selected because of their expertise, because of their knowledge, and because of the effectiveness they are having in delivering the improvement programme today. Thank you.
Thank you. On to question 10.3. Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please can the Cabinet member provide an update on the condition of Ministry of Defence estates in Hillingdon and any opportunities that are available for bringing empty military homes back into productive use?
Thank you. Councillor Tuckwell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bennett, for your question. Hillingdon Council has taken a clear lead on the issue of empty Ministry of Defence homes. We have directly challenged the MOD on the unacceptable situation of around 100 properties in our borough sitting empty, many of them for over 2 years. Mr. Mayor, because of this Council's persistence, we've now secured firm progress. The MOD has confirmed that around half of these homes will shortly be occupied by serving personnel being posted here in Hillingdon. This is something we fully support, as good quality housing for our armed forces is essential. For the remaining 50 homes, many of which need investment to meet modern standards, we are in active discussions with the MOD about practical options, including the Council leasing them and bringing them back into use. I will also be clear that whilst our local MP has been quick to comment publicly on this issue, it is Hillingdon Council that has led the engagement to secure progress and is driving real solutions for our residents. We are driving this work forward, and we will continue to push for a solution that ensures no viable home is left empty. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Can the Cabinet member confirm who will be allocated to the remaining empty MOD homes as and when they are brought back into use?
Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bennett, for your follow-up. I can confirm that the remaining MOD homes will be allocated to established Hillingdon families, in line with our housing allocations policy. This outcome reflects Hillingdon Council's persistent intervention and active negotiations with the Ministry of Defence. We are driving this process forward to ensure these homes are brought back into use for local residents who need them, rather than remaining empty. Thank you.
Question 10.11, Councillor Corr, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could the Cabinet member explain why the out-of-hours nuisance service has been effectively closed, given that no resident consultation was carried out prior to this decision? The data used to justify the withdrawal is acknowledged in the report as incomplete, specifically stating that it is not possible to obtain complete and accurate reports of the data held on the GOS system relating to the team's activities, and the report also confirms that noise complaints cannot be investigated remotely using noise recording equipment, noise apps or diary sheets alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Corr for your question, which falls to a decision that I made in my former portfolio. It is important to be clear the out-of-hours nuisance service is not being scrapped, despite the claims made by Councillor Corr. This was, of course, clearly laid out in the Cabinet report. It is being refocused because the evidence shows the old model was not delivering value for our residents. We were running approximately £300,000 a year emergency response for an average of 6 calls per shift, most of which were one-off events resolved with basic advice. So rather than continuing with an expensive system the data shows was rarely needed, we are targeting responses at the persistent, repeated and serious nuisances which genuinely disrupt people's lives. To be clear, we are retaining the ability to investigate and deploy officers out of hours when a case requires it. This is a practical, evidence-led improvement and not the closure she is seeking to portray it as. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Corr, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. The downgrade is as good as the closure because the critical out-of-service noise nuisance is now reduced to a basic 9 to 5 service. Can he or the new cabinet member put hand on their heart and say that vulnerable residents will not be put at risk? And will they accept personal responsibility if any harm comes to them as a result?
Councillor Lavery.
I refer the councillors to my earlier answer.
Thank you. So we move on to question 10.2, and that's going to be from Councillor Mills, Councillor Douglas Mills.
As all councillors have now received a letter from the Department for Education's Deputy Director regarding the safety valve agreement, is it fair to conclude that the pressures facing this administration are the result of national funding arrangements and wider systemic issues within the SEND framework, challenges that ultimately require national rather than solely local solutions?
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mills, for your question. Yes, Councillor Mills, you are correct to conclude that the pressures this council is under arises from national funding arrangements and wider systemic issues in the SEND framework. The Department for Education's recent letter is clear on this. The Department for Education has confirmed that Hillingdon's approach under the safety valve agreement demonstrates strong governance and progress. They said, "We commend you on the significant progress that has been achieved in Hillingdon and your rigorous approach to providing a high-quality, financially efficient SEND service." The national numbers are stark. The high needs deficit is forecast to reach £6.6 billion by 2025-2026. By 2026-2027, it will exceed all councils' usable reserves, and by 2028, whereby this will surpass both usable and ring-fenced reserves combined, leaving councils without the financial capacity to absorb any losses. The councils that were a safety valve success story are now falling back into deficit. For example, one of the other London boroughs, Richmond upon Thames, had reduced their deficit to £300,000 and is now facing a £4.5 million shortfall. A clear demonstration that no local authority can outrun the national pressures built into the current SEND framework. The pressures on high needs budgets are driven by the sharp rise in demand for EHCPs, Education, Health and Care Plans, since the legislative changes from the Children's and Families Act 2014, which expanded entitlements but did not provide necessary funding to cover the costs from central government. Independent experts agree. Andre Imick, formerly the DfE's SEN and Disabilities Professional Advisor for 14 years, recently stated in the Schools Week publication that the safety valve schemes show that the overspend issues are not down to inefficiencies or leadership issues in individual local authorities, who have been provided with additional funding and expert advice, monitoring and challenge from external specialist SEND and financial advisors, but to more fundamental, wide system issues. Despite repeated warnings, yesterday's budget gave us no assurance that the Labour government has yet to set out any plan for SEND reforms or how the national high needs deficit will be addressed as the statutory override approaches its end. Local authorities simply cannot solve a structural national problem without national action. In conclusion, Hillingdon is delivering exactly what is required of it, and the DfE recognises that. The financial pressures arise from national policy and funding arrangements, and only national reform, which sadly we are still waiting for, can provide a lasting solution.
Thank you. Councillor Mills, do you have a supplementary?
Would the Cabinet member agree with me that when Councillor Sweeting and indeed other Labour members contribute on this topic, suggesting that it's all the fault of this administration, we should remember that what they're expressing is non-professional, flaky analysis, and that the Deputy Director's letter, and I quote, "Our expert advisors have expressed confidence in your approach," and they noted the very strong progress made over the last year, leading to good outcomes, is indeed what should be remembered by councillors.
Thank you. On to... She does indeed. Councillor O'Brien, go on.
Start me laughing now. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and also thank you, Councillor Mills. Yes, I would agree that the analysis is slightly distorted from the Labour group. I would like to thank they very ably thank officers within the committee, then they wheel out a eureka moment when it comes to this chamber, just for political point scoring. SEND is in the news every day. We know every single day, every publication, there will be somebody talking about the national issue that's going on with SEND and not what's happening only in Hillingdon. EHCPs have never been as high. Currently we're at 3,667, and the operational work behind this for provision, special services and transport is something that our officers do in earnest every single day. I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Edwards' comments were earlier of the thoroughly good work that's carried out by our officer team in a highly emotive and very protectionist area with regards to, and completely understand how families feel about their children who require that additional needs within schools and and within their environments. So yeah, I would agree that this is generally trotted out just for a wider audience from our Labour group across the road.
Thank you. And on to question 10.12. Councillor Mathers, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can the Leader of the Council explain how 13.9 million adverse movement in just 2 months can possibly be presented as evidence that he and his Cabinet Member for Finance have any control over the Council's financial position?
Councillor Edwards.
Mr Mayor, regrettably I can't. And the reason for that is that neither I nor officers have been able to identify such a movement in any 2-month period. There was a movement of 13.8 million over the 3-month period, month 2 to month 5. If that is what Councillor Mathers is referring to, it would evidence that our control of the financial position is better than his control of elementary math. The explanation for the movement in forecast is provided in the financial reports published to members and the public, and so this information should be known to Councillor Mathers if he has read the budget reports. However, I will assist him. Those reports show that the adverse movement of £13.8 million over the months 3, 4 and 5 were attributed to 5.2 million in service operating budgets, including 3 million in temporary accommodation, 4.4 in corporate costs and 4.2 right out of reserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Supplementary?
Mayor. Despite the correction of 0.1 of a million, does the leader accept that the scale of this is about financial collapse and demonstrates not only budgetary failure but governance failure? Does he accept responsibility for that failure, and will he resign?
Councillor Edwards.
It's rather like asking the oversight there of the 2 months instead of the 3 months. I mean, is the leader of the Labour group going to resign because he can't add up? Of course not. Let's be sensible about this. I certainly won't be resigning because the government, successive governments, let's not just place this on at the blame of the Labour government, but successive governments have underfunded local authorities. They continue to do so. The problem we face here is not our overspending, it is our underfunding to meet the demands placed on this authority for statutory services, services that we have no option but to provide. And we do so at a very cost-effective, value-for-money way, as further data which will be produced to this council will show. So we are suffering as a consequence of underfunding. The extent of that underfunding, I hope, will become clear very soon with the new funding settlement. It would surprise me if Hillingdon isn't a significant gainer, potentially even one of the greatest gainers in London. And if that were the case, I very much hope that the Labour group would withdraw all of its criticism to date. Thank you.
Thank you. So question 10.4, Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member please give an update on the progress of development of the new Jubilee Platinum Leisure Centre and confirm when it is expected to be completed?
I believe this is Councillor Tuckwell, is it? Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Lavery. Right, OK, there you go. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm answering on behalf of Councillor Bianco tonight. Work on the Platinum Jubilee Leisure Centre is progressing well, and indeed I was on a visit there just a couple of weeks back. It is on track for substantial completion in January 2025. At that point, the facility will be handed over to the appointed operator. The official opening is scheduled for 5th of February. Actually, that should say January 2026, my correction in my notes. It's scheduled for 5th of February with public access to follow on a date to be agreed. The centre has been designed to offer a wide range of facilities with a 25-metre 8-lane swimming pool accompanied by a training pool and a leisure pool, a 2-level gym and a large sports hall, a 3G 5-a-side football pitch on the roof, and family features such as soft play areas, climbing centre, cafe and party rooms. In addition, there will be a family hub with its own separate access, providing additional community facilities. This development reflects our commitment to delivering modern, inclusive facilities that meet the needs of residents and promote health and well-being. Thank you.
Councillor Burrows, have you a supplementary? No supplementary, thank you. So we're on to question 10.8, that's from Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is to the Leader of the Council. The November budget report confirms that the Council cannot remain a going concern without exceptional financial support. When did the Leader first know that the Council was effectively insolvent? And why was this not immediately disclosed to members or residents?
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Sweeting for your question. I have said it many times, and I will repeat again, the financial challenge being managed by this administration is the consequence of government underfunding. Its resolution depends upon Hillingdon receiving fair funding, and not just that determined by the government's proposed new funding model. But it needs to cover all of our costs, including those that we incur as a consequence of being a port authority. And that factor is absent from that funding model. The Council's financial position is published in a transparent manner for the Cabinet, for members and residents to see and interrogate. I concluded relatively early in the financial year, when I became aware that the review of our balance sheet revealed the need to make accounting adjustments, that it was inevitable that our reserves would be depleted faster than forecast. That meant that should the demand for unfunded or underfunded statutory services continue to rise, as has subsequently been reported, we could no longer cope with the underfunding of those services without exceptional financial support. I do not believe that we are effectively insolvent, as I expect the fair funding settlement will show. But we will need to rely upon EFS going forwards until our underfunding is fully addressed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Have your supplementary, Councillor Sweeting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the leader for that answer. Will the leader commit to publishing the full list of spend controls, emergency financial restrictions and blocked expenditure items introduced behind the scenes since the Section 114 risk emerged?
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The matter of spending controls is delegated to the Chief Executive and the Section 151 officer. It is not a matter that is described by me. All I require is the utmost control be put on discretionary spend, and that is what is happening. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final member's question is from Councillor Bells.
Thank you. Does the Cabinet member believe that the new policy of not locking the gates of parks at night has been of any benefit to residents living in the local areas? If so, what are they?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Burls for your question. The removal of overnight locking of park gates has given residents far greater flexibility to use their parks at times that fit around their work, family life and daily commitments. We have had no significant rise in complaints or antisocial behaviour, or indeed members' inquiries since the change was made. And I would point out that there was not a consistency across type of park, area of location, or in any other way as to which parks were locked and which parks weren't. The change has allowed us to use staff time more efficiently than locking and unlocking, and we will continue to monitor the arrangement. The evidence so far is clear that greater park access is working well and delivering real benefits for our residents in green spaces. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Councillor Burrows.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for his reply. Is he aware of the opposition to his actions from local residents, including those living close to Passage Park in Uxbridge, who have had to endure increased antisocial behaviour incidents? Will he not take a second look at his decision, or will his new colleague, who's the Cabinet member for Community and that, do so if he won't?
Thank you, Councillor Burls. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Councillor Burls. I have, and in fact, in my former portfolio, I was contacted by one resident across this whole borough. So my previous comments still apply, and no doubt my successor will continue to evaluate the evidence that becomes available.
Right, on we go then to motions to Council. The first of these is 11.4, and Councillor Edwards, if you would please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. During the by-election campaign in 2023, Wes Streeting, the then Shadow Health Minister, said, "Hillingdon is by far the worst hospital I have ever seen," and he promised a brand new facility under Labour. However, the only change seen by residents since is the closure of Mount Vernon Urgent Care, effectively forced upon the Hillingdon Hospital Trust by financial pressures. The closure has been opposed by residents in Hillingdon, Harrow, Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire. More than 27,000 residents have signed a petition. It's opposed a motion at Harrow Council and been subject of an adjournment debate secured by the Member of Parliament for Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner. The planning permission granted for Hillingdon's new hospital is predicated on a number of present hospital-based services being provided in the community. And it would be reasonable to expect planning for those neighbourhood hubs or centres to be moving in tandem with those for the hospital. Our health partnership is expecting investment not only in the new hospital, but in the enabling neighbourhood health centres. Failure to deliver the latter will undermine the former, and the government's 10-year health plan, which commits to giving residents more healthcare in their neighbourhood, will not be delivered. To great fanfare, the government announced that Hillingdon will be one of the 43 first wave areas for the new Neighbourhood Health Service Programme. Note the language, Neighbourhood Health Service Programme. That is misleading because that programme focuses on how the integrated neighbourhood teams should work and is completely silent on the capital funding required. Crucially, being a Wave 1 area does not mean that Hillingdon has been awarded new health hubs or capital funding. Just last week, the Public Accounts Committee published their concern that structural changes are being made to the healthcare system without secured funding in place to pay for those changes, or impact assessments carried out. Clive Betts, the Labour MP and Deputy Chair of the committee, said, "Our committee has long established that large unfunded commitments without plans for delivery, while good at generating headlines, can only end one way. My fear is that there are no such plans, as they weren't announced in the budget yesterday. A cross-party approach will show the unity of representation on behalf of our residents to the Secretary of State for Health to secure the health facilities that our residents will depend upon in the future. I urge the opposition to put residents before party and support this motion." Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded?
That's seconded and I reserve my right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
We're moved and seconded. So, other speakers? Councillor Punger.
Mr. Mayor, I move to amend this motion. Mr. Mayor, I understand the concerns of the 27,000 petitioners. I live nearby. I use this service myself for a ganglion on my wrist and for blood pressure issues after an accident. But because I respect those residents, I won't lie to them. This administration claims this amendment seeks to silence residents. Let me be clear, we are not silencing anyone. We are telling them the truth. That's something that this administration has repeatedly failed to do. This amendment does not delete history, it corrects it. I move this amendment for 3 reasons. First, the Conservative motion demands a letter. If the leader wants to write to the Secretary of State, he doesn't need a motion, just a pen. Our amendment simply states the truth, £1.39 billion already signed off. They promised a new hospital, they failed. Labour is delivering it. Second, the clinical facts. Hillingdon Hospital's Chief Executive, Leslie Watts, told our committee clearly her duty is to deliver healthcare for all and a new hospital within budget. She also confirmed the Mount Vernon model, appointment-based, with half its patients ending up at Hillingdon, it was not clinically sustainable. Third, on health hubs. The motion claims they are years away. That is wrong. The Pembroke Centre in Ruislip Manor is open today, treating patients now. Last week, Minister Kinnock called it a model of modern primary care. Mr. Mayor, the original motion is pure political posturing. If the leader cared about public consultation, the RAGC would still be open. This was in his control, yet he forced its closure. For him to preach about listening now is breathtaking hypocrisy. Our amendment acknowledges concerns, thanks the government for the investment, and focuses on the future. I wish our NHS hadn't been underfunded for over a decade, but it was. 14 years of Conservative austerity left Mount Vernon dilapidated and pushed Hillingdon Hospital into repeated overspends. That is the reality. Over 300,000 people in this borough have longed for a new hospital. Boris Johnson promised one and never delivered. The leader of this council and the MP for Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner could have fought for investment. They didn't. It is Labour's MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, Danny Beales, who got Hillingdon to the front of the queue, a new hospital underway, and inclusion in the first wave of areas receiving new health hubs. That is progress they refuse to acknowledge. What we need now is partnership with the Integrated Care Board to ensure residents have accessible, urgent and diagnostic care throughout the transition. Mr. Mayor, This amendment acknowledges residents' concerns, welcomes record investment, recognises the rebuild underway and calls for maintained, urgent and diagnostic care during the transition. The original motion offers nothing but outrage and no solutions. I urge the Chamber to vote for healthcare for the £1.39 billion investment in our borough and for this amendment.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am pleased to second this amended motions. Residents were understandably worried when the Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit closed. Many people used it and they want to know what service will replace it. But we also must be honest about why our local NHS has been under so much pressure for so long. For many years, Conservative government repeatedly underfunded the NHS in Hillingdon. They kept promising new hospital, but nothing happened. Even when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister and our local MP, we still didn't get the money we were told would come. As a result, Hillingdon Hospital was left to fall further and further behind. Mr. Mayor, things are finally changing, and the Labour government has now committed £1.39 billion to rebuild Hillingdon Hospital, and first phase of work is already underway. The real money, the real action, and the real progress, something residents have been waiting for a decade. On the top, Hillingdon has been chosen for the first wave of 43 areas to get new health hubs. These hubs will be make easier for people to get urgent care and diagnostic tests closer to home. Leslie Watts, Chief Executive of Hillingdon Hospital, said in the Health and Social Care Select Committee in September that when neighborhood teams came to talk about the hubs, they were actually really well received by the local residents, which is really a positive thing, putting the care in right place, provided by the right people. So yes, the closure of Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit has caused disruptions, and we must keep pushing to make sure residents have still access to care they need during this period. But we also say clearly that the the investment our NHS has needed for years is finally happening. Mr. Mayor, this amendment recognizes concern, but it also acknowledges the huge progress finally has been made after years of delay. And it thanks the government for putting the health of Hillingdon residents above political posturing. I am proud to second this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The amendment is moved and seconded, so we're now, just to be clear, debating the amendment, and we start with Councillor Abbey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a cold afternoon when I went to collect my siblings from their schools in Hayes. I stood by the playground. I've noticed 7 men walking towards us. Within moments, everything turned violent, and we were attacked. Punches, kicks, and then first blade slid into my abdomen. At that moment, I felt like a sharp pinch, like a needle. I froze for a second, and then I found myself surrounded. I started to fight back with my fist while knives were struck me from every angle. I remember one blade flying towards my neck. I dodged it, but it cut through my chin. Another stabbed deep into my back, damaging my kidney. I lost count after that. All I knew was that I couldn't give up. I had to stay standing. Then a knife ripped into my left thigh. My left leg gave away, my balance slipping as a major muscle was torn.
Councillor Abbey, can I just...
I'm coming to the point.
Just for a moment, sorry, can you just explain the relevance of this in what you're saying, please? I'm not sure I quite grasp it from where I'm sat, so forgive me. It may just be me, but thank you.
Thank you. I remember the emergency team rushing in, desperately trying to stop the blood. On my way to hospital, I'll go straight to the point. When we reached the hospital, more than a dozen doctors and nurses were waiting for me. I could breathe, I felt myself slipping. When I woke up, I was not greeted by silence, I was greeted by heroes, doctors, nurses, faced itch with urgency. Fear and determinations, and then the words came. They said, I'm going to pass that again. I'll leave it off. By grace of God and the brilliant selfless ambulance crew, the nurses and doctors helped me, and I'm here alive. I'm standing here tonight, breathing, fighting for Mount Vernon urgent care. Mr. Mayor, my old friend, the MP for Uxbridge, has blocked me, so I turned directly to the Health Secretary, West Threathing, and say, do not use the same blade that nearly pierced my heart. Not ignore the cries of the people of Hillingdon. I called the Health Secretary to listen to the 27,000 petitioners demanding this urgent care unit. This is not a political plea. It's not a plea for human life. Every decision and every vote carries a heartbeat. I ask my colleagues not to support the amendment, not for politics, but for life. For every mother, father, child, disabled and elderly who might one day need this urgent care. Let us ensure that the hands that reach for help are met with care, not closure and cuts. I stand here alive because they did not hesitate. Let us not hesitate either. Vote to save this Mount Vernon, and I oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we now come to Councillor Smallwood.
Well, can I start by paying tribute to the incredible NHS staff that worked at the Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit. I think it's important we place that on record. When I saw this amendment about 4:30 this afternoon, I genuinely thought our Chief Whip was on the wind-up, but it seems that it is Hillingdon Labour who are having the laugh. This is not an amendment. This is Hillingdon Labour trying to silence residents. They've removed every last reference to the people who spoke up. The 27,000 signatures, deleted. 6,500 survey responders, deleted. Every voice that said this matters has been silenced because it doesn't fit the political story. And then to make matters worse, they tried to claim victory over Hillingdon Hospital. To remove our resident voices and then to claim credit is nothing short of a fairy tale. The simple truth is this. It was Conservatives who got the new hospital on the books under Boris Johnson. And it was Councillor Tuckwell who worked tirelessly to secure the funding and to deliver the planning permission. All while Labour have blustered, delayed and almost blew the project altogether. And it's almost wild to think that in this very year Councillor Curling sat in that chair. We might have disagreed on how to deliver, but at least then this lot stood for something. They had some integrity, with some principle, and there was some independent thought. Now they're simply controlled by the London Labour Party, more focused on party lines than delivering for the people of Hillingdon. Tonight could have been more than politics. It could have been politicians of all colours coming together to put that politics aside and speak with one voice for our residents. Instead, Hillingdon Labour have chosen to rewrite history. They pretend there is no issue with closing the service before replacing it with something tangible. They've tried to delete the petition, delete the concerns, delete the evidence, and delete the residents who trusted us to speak up. So when it comes to the elections next May, we are going to delete them. No wonder people are abandoning that sinking ship. When you silence the public, you lose the public. Colleagues, vote down the amendment, vote for the people's motion, and let me end with a quote from the great Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson. The Labour Party is at its best when it speaks for those who cannot speak for themselves. Our colleagues in Hillingdon should listen to his words.
Thank you, Councillor Burles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Councillor Burles, not London Labour Party, speaking to you. Mr. Mayor, I support this amendment. This amendment recognises two simple truths. Firstly, the Council does not control NHS clinical decisions. The closure of the Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit was made by the NHS based on safety, staffing and patient need, not politics. Pretending that the leader can order the NHS to reverse it misleads residents. Secondly, while the Conservative motion talks about disappointment, it ignores the real progress happening right now under the Labour government. After years of Conservative delays, Labour is delivering. Mr. Mayor, I've lived in this borough all my life. and I've used the local health services. And I've lost count of the number of times we were promised a new hospital. Those promises were never delivered until now. Under Labour, the rebuild is finally entering its first phase. The Pembroke Centre Health Hub is already providing excellent primary care for diagnostics, with plans to expand community services even further. And with Danny Bell's strong advocacy, Hillingdon is finally being treated as a priority, not an afterthought. This amendment focuses on delivery, making sure residents continue to access urgent and diagnostic care during the transition, exactly as NHS intends. The amendment thanks the Government for acting, demands that the NHS maintains accessible services, and reflects the investment residents have waited far too long for. This is a practical, honest and responsible approach. The original motion offers frustration. The amendment offers facts and a path forward. I urge members to support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Curling, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a prepared speech because I've only just seen the amendment this evening, but I would like to speak against the amendment because, for me, this is about Mount Vernon. It's not about the promises of a Labour government. Most of what's in here is jam tomorrow. Well, jam tomorrow, it may be fine. If those things come to fruition, they may be all good and dandy, but they're not here now. Mount Vernon is, or at least was, and this motion is about, yes, it is about outrage. Councillor Punja said it was all outrage. It is, because our residents are outraged that their facility is being taken away. And it's not faux outrage either for those on that side of the chamber that believe it is. So, yeah, I mean, a new hospital, I mean, I've been told since the 1990s that there's going to be a new hospital. I've seen about 16 different plans of a new hospital since the 1990s. It's never come to fruition. To be perfectly honest, if there's a new hospital in Hillingdon, I shall believe it when I see it. Until it's actually there, I don't believe it's going to happen. But we will be voting against this amendment and supporting the original motion.
Any other speakers before I come to Councillor Edwards, who has the right to reply? No other speakers? I shall call Councillor Edwards then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I very much regret this amendment. Ordinarily, amendments could be seen as an indication of trying to find a middle ground, a compromise, the sort of thing that we can agree on. But this amendment just falls so short. To seek to write out of the record the opposition of the closure of Mount Vernon by 27,000 residents is a step far too much. And that alone is why we will refuse to support the amendment. But more substantively, this amendment misses entirely the point of the original. The original was to write to the Secretary of State for Health seeking urgent clarity on when funding will be made available to Hillingdon to develop the promised health hubs. Hubs, not hospitals, to provide urgent and diagnostic care. Let us remind everybody that back under the Labour Party of Tony Blair, Lord Darzai, 2007, 2008, his report to the NHS about the future of the NHS introduced the ideas of these hubs, polyclinics, bringing together primary care, diagnostics like x-rays, minor operations, all under one roof. The hospital design is predicated on them existing. The problem is there are no plans and no funds to deliver those health hubs. Yes, there is plans to bring together some GPs at the Pembroke Centre. My GP is moving there, but certainly not the plans envisaged by the Darzai polyclinics, by the hubs that are envisaged necessary to ensure the success of Hillingdon Hospital. The amendment misses that point entirely, and for that reason it must be rejected. The motion is about funding and commitment for health hubs in the community, not about funding for Hillingdon Hospital. maybe Labour need to pay a little bit more attention to detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Punja as the mover of the amendment.
Thank you. Well, I have a few things to say. Firstly, Labour created the NHS. Labour will protect the NHS. That is for sure. Healthcare is about all of our residents, and I did actually acknowledge in my speech the 27,000 petitioners, because it do matter to me. And actually, Mount Vernon in the Health and Social Care Committee, Leslie Watts did say about Mount Vernon that it is treating people from outside of our borough, and her responsibility is to make sure that there is equity of healthcare within our borough. That is a really, really important point, because in the south of our borough, there are places that don't have healthcare, let alone GP surgeries. Secondly, the funding formula for the health hubs is out. Councillor Edwards, use your pen, write the proposals and get the funding in. And if this council could run the NHS, then if this council ran the NHS, it would probably be bankrupt like this council. So I don't think that Leslie Watts wants to take any advice from this council leader. And Councillor Curling didn't believe that Labour was going to win Uxbridge and South Ruislip. He didn't turn up. And so I don't surprise that he doesn't believe that we're not going to get a new hospital, but we will, rest assured. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, at this point we come to a vote on the amendment. So those in favour, I would ask to show, please. And those against? And the amendment's lost. So with that, we return to the substantive motion, and I call Councillor Riley, please.
April of next year will be the 4th anniversary of my being injured in action. I was at a campaign meeting, a very large campaign meeting, and I was walking down a very steep slope on some pretty uneven ground, and I fell very heavily on my left side and pretty much smashed myself up. After some expert remedial treatment, I was taken forthwith to Mount Vernon's Urgent Care Centre, where I received expert help. It was swift, it was good, I got an x-ray, it was sent by email to the orthopaedic surgeons at Hillingdon. I didn't clog Hillingdon up because there were been lots of people there. But the point, Mr. Mayor, was this. It was a local health service for local people. It was close by, and it was efficient and effective and well rehearsed and well went through. It was important, looking back on it, that I wasn't one of those people who had to go to Hillingdon, because time and again, when most of us who have been to Hillingdon Hospital see very long queues and long waits, I didn't have to sit in a corridor or anything like that. The Urgent Care Centre at Mount Vernon was an important, very important local thing for local people, not just in this borough, but also those on the edges at Hertfordshire and elsewhere. A really important feature. Why would the NHS close something when pressure would be put even more on Hillingdon? So, in view of this motion, I went to look at the statutes and the regulations around healthcare. And localism and local services are very important. But I have to tell you, Mr. Mayor, it's a right morass to go through. So, Theseus-like, without the aid of a string from Ariadne, I went through the statute. And I can tell the leader that the reality is that the Secretary of State has the duty and the right to call in decisions about closure, and can look at them, and also is invited through the statutes to seek local opinion where there has not been sufficient information to and from local people to the local NHS. I'm not at all sure that the correct procedures for consultation have been gone through in this event, and that needs to be looked into too. So when the leader is writing to the Secretary...
Can you wind up, Councillor Riley?
When the leader is writing to the Secretary of State, I ask him to look at this process of asking the Secretary of State to call in. I support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to support this motion. When the proposal first came forward to close Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit, residents reacted immediately. More than 27,000 people signed a petition, and every conversation I've had in the community reflected the same concern. People simply did not want this service to close because they understood what it meant for local people and for the wider system. And they were right. When it shut in September, we were told it was just a reconfiguration, but the reality has been very different. What it's meant in practice is more residents being directed straight to Hillingdon Hospital, right in the heart of my ward, at a time when the hospital is already operating under significant pressure. Now, I want to share a personal experience as perhaps one of the last users of Mount Vernon's urgent care service. Early this year, when I fractured my foot, and yes, I am still wearing the boot, Mr. Mayor, I went to the Mount Vernon Urgent Care Unit. I was seen, treated, and discharged within an hour. It was efficient, it was calm, and it worked. After the closure, I needed the follow-up x-ray and consultation, and as advised by my GP, I went to the Hillingdon Urgent Treatment Centre. That visit took more than 4 hours, and as others later told me, I'd actually been lucky. The reality is, a quick, reliable service has disappeared in Hillingdon, and the alternative is now a long wait at a hospital that's already stretched. And none of this should surprise anybody. As the leader said, in 2023, the now Health Secretary was treating this right Hillingdon Hospital as the worst he'd ever seen. And despite the extraordinary work of the NHS staff, the latest CQC inspection still rated its urgent and emergency service as requires improvement. Mount Vernon, meanwhile, was rated as good for urgent care and for surgery. Yet, it's Hillingdon Hospital that's expected to absorb more demand. Make it make sense. So residents are right to feel frustrated. The Trust took its decision, but the government had every opportunity to step in, to pause it, to look again at the impact, or at the very least, to provide clear information about the health hubs that were supposed to replace this service. Instead, there's been near silence, and residents have been left carrying the consequences. And that's why this motion matters, because it's entirely fair to ask why a good rated service has been closed, why a hospital still under pressure is being asked to cope with more, and why residents in Hillingdon are burdening the impact of this. For that reason, Mr. Mayor, I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Goh. Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The NHS is complicated. Patients want easy single processes. They want convenience, locality, and relationships. Also, they want to get better. Hillingdon Health Partnerships is strong, and credit to all those involved. But they need to be trusted to deliver. That freedom only comes from the government. That is why it's right that the leader must write to the Secretary of State. The new Hillingdon Hospital should happen. Having fully functioning neighbourhood hubs should also happen. Advanced treatment on your doorstep is what everyone wants. I back Hillingdon Health Partnership, but they need to be given the funds and the freedom to do what is right for our residents. Closing the Mount Vernon Urgent Centre, moving it to Hillingdon Hospital, just when Hillingdon Hospital is, well we hope, about to be rebuilt, does not feel right. If the hospital's knocked down, where's the urgent centre going to go then? Closing it before neighbourhood hubs are fully delivered to the community feels premature, and we've heard from the leader of the council tonight about how far away they are from being fully delivered. People need urgent treatment now. Urgent treatment is needed now for people who have urgent problems. This is why the Mount Vernon Urgent Care Centre should be reopened, and it should stay reopened until the full delivery of all the other services to deal with the problems caused by it closing have been put in place. That is why all councillors should support this motion today.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taking away something which you once had and is now no longer there can be very concerning, and I have sympathy for those who signed the petition, as I also have sympathy for the way that the residents in Heathrow Villages ward, who have absolutely no, repeat, no medical facilities, not even a doctor's surgery. The petition of residents regarding the service at Mount Vernon indicated local concern. However, let's be quite clear as to why the centre has closed and how we have reached this point. 1. It's due to the centre's financial instability, namely the need to address a long-standing financial deficit, a 1 million loss each year, a constant bleeding of money affecting the whole trust. This is not just an emerging thing, it's happening a long time ago. 2, that the buildings were considered to be tired and cramped by patients and in poor condition and generally dilapidated. 3, that the centre did not and could not deliver on-site acute care. The motion highlights the campaign now being made and the fight by MP, council, residents. However, I need to ask, where was this council, this leader, this MP, when the Conservative government delivered its austerity programme, which meant lack of funding for the NHS and its buildings, such as Mount Vernon's buildings? Why did not this Conservative council lobby the then Conservative government and even the Prime Minister, who happened to be the local MP, for extra funding for Mount Vernon? No, wait, stop press. The leader of the council stated in this very council chamber, "We do not lobby government." So there you have it. You were not prepared to kick the Conservative government for more money for local health facilities, improvement to buildings, when you had the power and influence to do so. So as per usual, you are in the blame game. Let's blame Labour, who are having to pick up the pieces of the completely calamitous 14 Tory years. So the roots of this closure rest with those who sat on their hands and remained silent when this centre was hemorrhaging its lifeblood. Badly done, Hillingdon. Badly done, Hillingdon Council. Badly done.
Thank you. Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to correct my earlier speech, I think it was Councillor Higgins that was chairing the committee that passed it at the Hillingdon Hospital. What we're asking for tonight is straightforward. We want this council to back our residents, to back the urgent care in this borough, and to get some clarity on health hubs. Nothing dramatic, nothing complicated, just a clear message that we stand with the people who rely on these services every day. And as we've already heard, the strength of feeling is strong. Over 27,000 people signed David Simmons' petition and 6,500 filled in his health survey. You only get numbers like that when something really matters, when people feel vital services at risk and they're not prepared to let it disappear. So let's find out who here backed the campaign. Every single Conservative councillor, our colleagues, and I thank them for this, in the Hayes Independent Group, and the Labour MP and it's actually wonderful to see Councillor Gardner on this side, a dream come true for me indeed. And of course her great friend, John McDonnell, who stood on our side. But who didn't sign it? Not a single Labour councillor, not a single name, not a single signature, and residents notice this. So let's give them one more chance. I'll stay behind for 10 minutes after council, and any of them can come along and sign the petition. It won't take long, and 16 people to sign a petition will take less than 2 minutes. But they're not the only ones who have not signed it. Somebody else has failed to back these residents, Danny Beals. And instead of signing the petition, he chose to call this campaign false outrage. Now, Mr. Mayor, me and Danny actually have a little bit in common. We're both Fulham fans. I think we've both got excellent glasses. And yes, both of us enjoy a photo op. But the difference is that on Mount Vernon, I've managed to land on the right side of reality. Because however stylish our glasses may be, neither of us can pretend that 27,000 residents are imagining things, and how dare he call it false outrage? Because really, this shouldn't be about politics, it should be about community sense and about the people of Mount Vernon. To end, I just wanted to say something a 91-year-old resident wrote to me about this. Said, "I feel anxious at the thought of having to go to A&E, and that after a recent fall, Mount Vernon was easy to reach and an excellent and a lifeline. They begged me that we didn't lose it. until we got something easily accessible. The reality behind this is the numbers. The reality behind this is that resident telling us that. So vote for this motion, stand with our residents and say that urgent care in Hillingdon must be protected. Thank you.
Okay. Before we return to Councillor Higgins, who's second in reserves, who's right. No other speakers? I'm just checking the chamber. Apparently not. So back to Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to also thank the NHS. They've been absolutely brilliant with me for over the last year, so I'll put that on the record. And it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. So, on that note, I will move on. I think all the colleagues have said the right things, and I totally agree with all of them. But the main thing for the Northwood residents, and that's who I represent, and Mount Vernon is in my ward, is the lack of consultation. And this is as a critical friend to the trust. That our residents, that's why they made it a policy to sign this petition, because they feel that their voice was not heard. And I will not be lectured by Labour on fighting governments. We fought the government on third runways, HS2. I started my first campaign fighting for Harefield Hospital. So please don't go around saying that we never challenged, and that was our own government. But on the real situation here, I have one of my residents here, is the fact that they were promised time and time again to have this consultation, and time again they have been let down. And that, to me, is not putting residents first. That's not looking after our community. And wouldn't it have been wonderful that the new hub was Mount Vernon? Wouldn't that would have been wonderful? If they got their act together. I was in the chair when I passed Hillingdon Hospital. We made it sure that the funding and everything was directed to West London. The government wanted that, and as our own government wanted to make sure that the carbon offset was for the whole of London. I said no, as the chairman, and the committee turned around and said, we're going to have it for West London, and that's what we did. So everything was in place. It was about to start. I think the ground was in, you put a shovel in the ground, Steve, Councillor Tottenham, I think. But so we were nearly there. But the point is that I'm saying, it's about Northwood residents who use that facility on a regular basis. It's a fantastic thing. Unfortunately, it's closed, but we need to make sure that consultation, and that is written in the letter about consultation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And finally, back to Councillor Edwards as the proposer of the original motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For once, I will agree with Councillor Punja. I can just pick up the pen and will do so. And I will be writing to the Secretary of State. But I had hoped that the power of that pen would have been with the unanimity of this chamber. And it appears that that is not going to be the case. I do thank the Hayes Independent Party for their support. And I also say, shame on you, Labour councillors, for turning your back on Hillingdon's residents. What this motion was seeking was no more than clarity. Clarity of the plans and the funding plans that lie behind the government's commitment to build diagnostic health hubs in our community. If they exist, the Secretary of State will, I'm sure, send them by return of post. I'm not expecting that to happen because I think, like many things this government has done, it is about headlines, and the substance will not be behind it, just as the Public Accounts Committee found to be the case. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So we come now to the vote on the original motion. Can I ask those in favour to please show? And those against, please. And that's carried. Thank you. So we move on rapidly then to 11.1. This is a motion from Councillor Gerlich. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion arises from a simple but undeniable reality. Across Hillingdon, our residents are watching the fabric of their communities fray. They see it in the state of our roads. They see it in the litter, the fly tipping, the overflowing bins, the carpets of uncollected leaves. Walk down almost any street in our borough and the conclusion is inescapable. Hillingdon needs to be cleaned up, and it needs to be cleaned up now. And let's be honest, our residents are not merely frustrated, they are angry. Just days ago, one resident described their road to me as Mattress Central. Another called our streets messy, weed-infested potholes. And then there was a resident who moved to Hayes 6 years ago, full of pride in well-kept streets and the sense of community. Today she tells me she is ashamed to invite her friends and family to visit. Now let me be absolutely clear, none of this is the fault of our street cleaning teams. On the contrary, they are heroes of public service. They work on social hours, up before dawn, working in all weather, operating under pressure, understaffed and overstretched. They give everything, and given the burden placed upon them, it is no surprise that standards are slipping. Because the truth, the plain and unavoidable truth, is that this decline is driven by cuts, budget cuts. Cuts dressed up in the language of service redesign and efficiency savings, when on the ground the story is painfully obvious. Our streets are dirtier, we have fewer resources, and the system is failing. This administration has made short-sighted savings that incur far heavier costs in the community pride, public health, and the appearance of our borough. We have seen deep reductions in street cleansing budgets, round organised, end-of-free bulky waste collection, and dressed up as green waste subscription, this charge has created chaos. Bin bags ripped open, garden waste left scattered across pavements, fragments of rubbish blowing like tumbleweed in neighbourhoods. This is not efficiency, it's false economy. We have even abandoned common sense measures such as nighttime park closures, a short-term saving that leads to long-term problems. And older residents will remember it wasn't always like this. Every street in Hillingdon used to be swept. Today some residents tell me they have never, not once, seen a street sweeper, unless of course they happen to live in the north of a borough. Even after the heavily promoted successful rollout of new collection rounds in 2022, sweepers are still arriving on the wrong day, on Wednesdays, when the rubbish is collected on Mondays. You couldn't design a more inefficient system if you tried. And who suffers most? The high-density neighbourhoods in the south, communities that depend most on clean, safe, dignified public spaces, are the ones being let down. Mr. Mayor, we all know, and the evidence is overwhelming, that the environment people live in shapes their well-being, their pride, their sense of belonging. This is not a trivial issue. It is fundamental to the quality of life in our borough. And let me emphasize, we are not here simply to complain. This motion sets up practical, constructive, achievable steps. First, we must work with local businesses, especially fast food outlets, whose packaging is too often found dumped in our streets. Responsibility does not end at the shop door. Second, we need stronger engagement with landlords, particularly of HMOs, to tackle chronic issues of overflowing bins and waste that attracts vermin and damages neighbourhoods. Third, we must learn from best practice elsewhere and adopt methods that have proven successful in other boroughs. Mr. Mayor, our residents deserve better. They deserve streets they can be proud of. They deserve a council that sees cleanliness not as a cost, but as a commitment to dignity, to pride, to community. Let's draw a line under the decline. Let's put an end to the grotty streets of Hillingdon. Mr. Mayor, I urge all colleagues to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Mr. Mayor, I second formally and reserve my right to speak at the end.
Who have we got? Other speakers? Councillor Islam, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise tonight to support this motion because it reflects what so many residents across Hillingdon, particularly in my ward of West Brighton, have been telling us for months Our streets are getting dirtier, our bins are overflowing, weeds are going out of control. Services are simply not what they used to be. Let's be honest, Mr. Mayor, residents are frustrated. They pay their council tax, they rightly expect the clean street, regular refuse collection, and proper weed control, yet over the past year, we have seen a sharp decline in these basic services. Weeds looks like we are in a Jurassic Park. Residents are asking why pavement and curb are being damaged by uncontrollable growth of damaged weeds. The costly pavement repair must be rising. Overflowing bin, neglected pavement have become far too common. We have had a constant complaint from the residents about the collection and the litter piling up around bus stops and shops. The motion rightly point out the council financial trouble are having huge impact on services, and the cuts of frontline services year after year are now visible on our street. The administration has made the wrong choice time and time again, failing to invest properly in frontline services. When residents see uncontrolled rubbish, unmanaged weeds, neglected street, they see first-hand price of that mismanagement. Mr. Mayor, worse still, when our public spaces are left to decline, it does not just affect community pride and public health, it also creates the condition where criminality, antisocial behavior can take root. Neglected streets send the message that nobody cares. This invisibility encourages more fly tipping, vandalism, and crime. We had the same message over and over again from residents in my ward when I out and about. People cannot understand why the decline has been so fast. Residents are asking why their council tax has gone up, yet the service they receive took worse than each passing month. The council must face up these responsibilities. It's not enough to point the finger at financial pressure. While failing to get the basics right, clean street, reliable collection, and properly maintained neighborhoods are the foundation of safe and thriving community, and that's what our residents deserve. I support this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeting, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hillingdon is in the midst of a fly-tipping, green waste littering, weed sprouting emergency of its own making, brought on by this administration's total lack of grip on practices which drain money and deliver no solutions. Money which will be better spent in bringing all of our streets and high streets back to a condition which Hillingdon residents deserve. Fly tipping and littering of both the green and multicoloured versions is our modern day plague, affecting every ward, and especially wards with high populations, having been made urban rather than suburban by this administration, so increasing the density of new builds as well as the onward march of HMOs in Hillingdon, some well run, some not, some registered, some not. A policy left adrift until just today by this administration, whilst other neighbouring boroughs have grasped this thorny nettle years ago. Let me concentrate on our fly tipping and littering epidemic. What has been the council's call to action to combat this pandemic? Do we have a rolling programme of campaigns which highlight the scourge of fly tipping? No. Do we involve our schools to get the message across, as our children are the big hitters when it comes to telling parents what not to do? No. Do we have any creative visuals by way of posters delivered by way of our libraries, schools and buildings, highlighting each month the cost to us all of fly tipping? No. Do we have slogans such as "Don't be a tosser" used by Keep Britain Tidy to get the message across? No. Do we have eye-catching events such as mock crime scene tape and barriers put around large fly tips to get the message across? No. Do we fine our tossers? No. Just take the example of fly tipping on the Green, West Drayton. In the past year, residents, local councillors have reported more than 40 incidences of fly tipping by way of members' inquiries, emails, complaints, even photos of litter with addresses on it, so complaints are plenty. Yes, the fly tipping is collected. The cage van trundles round and around like a hamster caught in a never-ending wheel, and the green litter pickers do their sterling bit. But nothing changes. Why not? Well, the small fly tipping notices pinned to lampposts do not cut the mustard. But most of all, absolutely no fines. Yes, one mild slap on the wrist saying naughty, naughty, but no hitting where it hurts. One added issue is we now charge 48 quid for most of us to get rid of the bulky waste, 35 smackers for the over 65, and 85
Can you wind up, please, Councillor Sweeting?
So, we deserve better.
Councillor Corr, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me begin with a confession. I now have more photos of fly tips, ripped bag bags, filthy mattresses and decaying waste on my phone than I have of my own loved ones. That is life of Hillingdon Councillor in 2025. Every ping on my phone that adds to the pang when I see the photos of dumped sofas, broken glass and weeds so high they could apply for planning permission. This is not just an eyesore, it's woeful neglect. It is an utter disregard for residents' well-being, especially in our densely populated areas, and it is spreading. Hotspots are multiplying across the borough. The list grows longer every week within my ward itself, from Bullsbrook Road to Hayes and Methodist Church Corner, from Avondale through Central Avenue, Bottle Common York, Wayland Tudor Road, Wood and Green, and more. And the reasons are not a mystery. A lack of enforcement. Only 6 officers to cover an entire borough. And whatever enforcement exists clearly isn't a deterrent when rubbish piles up under the lamppost displaying no dumping signs. Garden waste charges pushing rubbish into black bags. Animals tearing open litter bags left on the streets. Leaves, weeds and debris left uncollected. One resident put it plainly and painfully. I would like to get a rebate on my council tax as I clean my street at least twice a month. The streets are filthy. Another resident said the streets of Hayes were one big tipping site and that she felt ashamed every time her daughter came to visit her from Yorkshire. These are not political statements. Sadly, this is their lived reality. Mr. Mayor Harrow has installed mobile CCTV cameras in fly tipping hotspots and even runs a public wall of shame to deter offenders. Brent, through its Don't Mess with Brent campaign, has stepped up enforcement and also has its wall of shame style caught on the camera. And Ealing, a total of 2,488 fly tipping fines were issued between January and September this year alone. Why can't we do it? Residents are reporting relentlessly. We are reporting relentlessly. They are doing their bit. Now we as council must do ours. Let's support this motion and start restoring pride, safety and dignity to the borough we all serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bridges, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to speak against this motion because it doesn't reflect the reality of the services we are delivering for residents, quite frankly. Far from being in decline, our waste and street scene provision continues to improve and innovate. Complaints on waste services have fallen by over 17% compared to the same period last year. Even as we successfully implemented the transformation of the garden waste service, that service alone has generated over 1.5 million since April, with 22,300 households subscribed, a clear sign of resident confidence. On street cleansing, we've invested in 7 new road sweepers, now fully operational, cleaning litter, leaves and weeds across the borough. These improvements were celebrated for a community-led naming competition, reinforcing local pride. And we will be going further, Mr. Mayor. A new Clean Streets reporting system will soon launch, making it easier for residents to report issues such as graffiti and broken bins. Grass cutting is delivered on a tri-weekly schedule. Weed spraying has been completed across all sites, and our Green Spaces team has carried out 1,600 safety inspections across 150 play areas to ensure safe and inclusive spaces. Our waste service performs over 16.8 million collections annually, handling 97,502 tonnes of waste, and Hillingdon ranks joint 7th in London for recycling performance, a position we should all be proud of. This administration, Mr Mayor, is committed to continuous improvement, efficiency and community engagement, and the facts show progress, not decline, as this motion shows yet again the Labour opposition's position. Ignore the facts and continue to talk the borough and our services down. Colleagues, I urge all colleagues to reject this motion and recognise the efforts that keeps our boroughs clean and puts our residents first.
Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise once again, but this time to speak against this motion. Firstly, can I just say, I think we all agree that residents deserve clean streets, reliable collections and a borough they can be proud of. No one on this side of the chamber takes that lightly. But what I cannot agree with, Mr Mayor, is the political narrative being pushed here today. This motion paints a picture of sudden decline, but ignores both the facts and the context. At the Resident Services Select Committee over the past year, we've been consistently briefed on the pressures facing frontline services nationally. Inflation, fuel costs, vehicle maintenance, labour shortages and rising waste tonnages. These are not unique to Hillingdon, and they did not arise from local mismanagement. But what is unique to Hillingdon is the sheer scale of national pressures being passed down to us, made even worse by the Labour government's failure to properly fund us. In our September committee, officers confirmed that at the time we had around 1,500 households in temporary accommodation, with roughly 800 of those requiring direct subsidy from the council. But despite these enormous statutory pressures, this council is continually investing and our officers are delivering exceptionally. In fact, recent select committee reports show that our waste and recycling rounds are meeting their completion rates consistently, even with rising volumes. A new weed spraying cycle has been introduced using environmentally responsible treatments. An entire new fleet of street sweeper vehicles have been recently introduced. And finally, in the coming days, we're due to see the rollout of the new Love Clean Streets reporting app, allowing residents to report issues super quickly. Now I ask Mr Mayor, are these signs of an authority sharply declining? No. These are signs of an administration working exceptionally for its residents, despite the most difficult financial environment local government has seen in decades. What Labour's motion seeks to do is oversimplify complex pressures on the council and unfairly undermine the hard work of our staff who are out there at 6 o'clock in the morning every single day, keeping the borough clean and keeping the borough moving. The reality is, no council can escape the financial pressures facing local government right now, but Hillingdon is still delivering weekly waste collections, still investing in its fleet, still responding to resident reports, and still maintaining one of the best waste and recycling services in London. I personally will never support a motion that so blatantly misrepresents the facts and diminishes the efforts of our frontline workforce. And so for those reasons, Mr Mayor, I will be voting against this motion, and I encourage every councillor in this chamber to do the same.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given that my colleagues have already said many of the things that I would have said in something that was in my former portfolio, I shall keep my remarks brief. I will oppose this motion and encourage all others to do so, as I do not recognise the description provided. We do provide a weekly refuge collection service. The changes to garden waste collection are satisfactorily introduced, and there is no evidence that that has increased fly tipping. The vans do make their way round each ward every single day to collect. It is not always possible to identify where it comes from or who has done it. We do encourage reporting and we do investigate. And I certainly have been out with both the antisocial behaviour teams and the waste teams on numerous visits, in fact all of them in the south of the borough, by coincidence, where we are investigating people who don't have waste licences, trying to identify where frequent fly tipping is coming from and taking action to deal with it. So I do not accept the premise of this motion and therefore I will vote against it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, we're going to come to Councillor Mathers. I can't see anyone else indicating, and you seconded and reserved your right, did you not? So, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, what a mess. What a mess is the picture of our borough, sadly. However, I am happy to walk the new Cabinet member around the hotspots and hopefully he will recognise the situation and much more. I am proud of living and working in Hillingdon, but I am devastated at the deterioration and the decline of our borough. It is said deterioration comes from the top and it trickles down, illustrating how poor political leadership leads to such decline in our local communities. It is similar to the broken window theory, being if the top is neglected and shows signs of decay, others will cease to care or maintain their own parts, leading to a downward spiral. It could be called the decline and fall of the Roman Empire theory, or maybe even the decline and fall of the theory of this administration, as it has been around for many years. In Hillingdon, it could be called the decline and fall of the green waste theory. It has shown itself in Hillingdon by being increased fly tipping. Green waste now ended up in black sacks, weeds sprouting out of the pavements, and it is only because we have changed seasons and they finally got sprayed earlier this couple of months ago that we see weeds are no longer waist height but are starting to disappear away. Rats appearing in drains and streets surrounded in litter, despite the endless hard work of our council officers, to whom we are very grateful. Salami cycling of budgets through year on year has meant volunteers such as Hillingdon list pickers have been needed when the baton has been dropped by the Conservative administrations. We are also extremely grateful to those litter pickers. The decay may not be so prevalent in certain areas of the borough where there are fewer residents or fewer HMOs or fewer blocks of flats. But the wards where the council's cash cow has been, from lots and lots of flats being developed and more council tax being raised, have shown huge deterioration in their public spaces, pavements and parks. And that cycle must need to be both recognised and resolved. This council is now in difficult financial waters, and where reserves have fast deteriorated. However, creative ways must be found to smarten up our borough, and this motion starts that journey so that our wonderful residents who deserve and are asking for better get better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And back to Councillor Gerlich as the mover of the motion, please.
Thank you. The people of Hillingdon know the truth, and they live on the streets where fly tipping, overflowing bins, weeds and dirty gutters have become the norm. Our motion is simple. The presentation and cleanliness of our streets have sharply declined, linked directly to a financial crisis, hitting frontline services, refuse collection, street cleaning and weed removal. And I want to reiterate to those who didn't listen to me speaking previously that we have called heroes, the teams they have called heroes of public service, as they work in very under pressure, understaffed and outstretched. So we give credit to them for their work. And the finger pointed at others belongs to an administration that has driven our finances into crisis and now seeks to blame the world beyond these walls. Residents deserve better than partisan games while their streets deteriorate. This motion is not radical. It asks only that the Council acknowledge what residents see and act to restore basic standards of cleanliness that every community has the right to expect. Voting against it says spin matters more than residents' experience. Voting for it says it will accept responsibility and begin the essential work of putting things right. I urge members to support this motion, to put residents before party comfort and give Hillingdon back its pride.
Right, so now we come to the vote on the motion, and I'm going to ask those in favour of the motion now please to show. Yeah, thank you. And those against? The motion is lost. Thank you. We move on then to motion 11.2 from Councillor Curling, although I gather it's being moved by Councillor... It is being moved by Councillor Curling. Beg your pardon. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move this motion on an issue that should not be at all contentious and one that all parties can support, both at a local level and a national level. Indeed, that was the position at Westminster until recently. Swift bricks are basically nesting boxes behind a brick face with a hole to allow rare birds to nest in a purpose-built cavity. This is because their previous nesting places, such as roofs and eaves, have been made inaccessible to them by things such as insulation. Swift bricks not only assist birds in providing an ideal nesting place, but they also protect properties and roofs from being damaged. When Steve Reed was the Environment Secretary, he joined forces with Zach Goldsmith and supported the campaign backed by the RSPB for planning law to include the mandatory installation of Swift bricks in all new developments. Steve Reed told the campaigners that they were pushing at an open door, as this proposal had all party support and had the government's full backing. It therefore came as a disappointing surprise that Steve Reed, as the Housing Secretary, has withdrawn Labour support for mandatory Swift bricks in every new development. That open door that he said campaigners were pushing against has suddenly, and for no explicable reason, been slammed shut. When the Lords debated Zach Goldsmith's amendment to add mandatory inclusion of Swift bricks in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill on the 3rd of November, the Labour peers were under a three-line whip to vote against, resulting in the absurd situation of Baroness Young, the former head of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, who had previously supported the idea, voting against. This U-turn, one of many by this Labour government, has caused considerable unrest within the rare bird and wildlife organisations, because swifts and other rare birds, such as sparrows and house martins, are dying out, which is having a detrimental effect on our environment and biodiversity. One can only wonder and speculate as to why the man that now says build, baby, build, has withdrawn government support for mandatory inclusion of Swift bricks in all new developments. It can't be because of the cost, because Swift bricks only cost about £30, which is chicken feed when it comes to the cost of development. Whilst we can't change planning legislation, we can add our own local policies, and I hope that this motion receives all party support, so that we as a council can express our disappointment with the government's U-turn on Swift bricks, as well as developing our own planning policies and guidance to encourage the inclusion of Swift bricks on all new developments here in Hillingdon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Gardner?
Mr. Mayor, I actually take pleasure in seconding this motion, which, considering the concern we all here have for the natural environment, is basically a common sense no-brainer. We have new developments cropping up all over the borough, especially in the Hayes area, and in some cases they are taking away or disrupting the nesting areas for birds. I actually really, I like wildlife, just in case you think I'm waffling. These Swift bricks are approximately £30 each, as Councillor Coney said. New flatted developments that are propping up everywhere will probably need between 4 and 10, and the same for commercial premises. Of course, that's depending on the size. The houses will need at the most 2, which will hardly dent the developer's bank balances. There is some confusion over the name Swift bricks, as many nesting birds have been found to be using them. House sparrows, house martins, starlings, blue tits and great tits, of course not to be confused with those in Parliament and the other place who are whipped to vote against the motion. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we're now moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Then we're with Councillor Supwell now, please.
Don't know how to follow that, Mr. Mayor, but thank you anyway. The Conservative group will not be supporting this motion. We all share a commitment to protecting wildlife and enhancing biodiversity, and Hillingdon has a strong record of supporting practical measures to achieve this. The national government has recently reviewed its approach to Swift bricks and has decided not to mandate through building regulations, instead encouraging their use through planning guidance. Whilst we welcome the spirit of this motion, any local measures must remain evidence-based, proportionate and practical to ensure they deliver real ecological benefit without creating unnecessary cost or complexity. Hillingdon will continue to value and promote biodiversity in all of our planning work, considering opportunities to support wildlife in ways that are feasible, practical and consistent with national planning guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we've got Councillor Mathers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do speak against this motion, as unfortunately it does seem to be flying a little on a wing and a prayer, although I get the sentiment of it all. When we dig beneath the feathers of this motion, we can see that what's happening here is that there's slight political point scoring, and I please and I hope so that there isn't any, and we are trying to protect biodiversity, and I'm pleased and happy to work with any of the groups to do so. But let's be clear, the Labour government's decision was not about to not mandate Swift bricks, was not about removing biodiversity, but practical policy making. As said by Councillor Tuckwell, this is about making sure that we don't have a rigid one-size-fits-all rules and clip in the wings when we urgently need to build houses. We have a housing crisis. Councillor Curling and others in his group and I have campaigned for many years to see more affordable and suitable housing in this borough. And we have criticised the administration's record unanimously in our approach in opposition to their lack of house building. And it's this failure of house building that we need to focus on. Now we need to get building. And Steve Reid is right in saying build, baby, build. And I'm pleased there has been some progress from this Conservative administration, but it is too little and it does not go far enough. So just as we have been outraged, as we were around the HMO licensing being delayed, we are equally outraged and frustrated at the lack of building affordable housing. Swift bricks are valuable where appropriate, but
Carry on, please.
Swift bricks are valuable where appropriate, but mandating everywhere, even where Swifts cannot nest, risks slowing development, increasing cost and reducing the supply of affordable homes, precisely the homes that this council has failed to provide. Mr. Mayor, supporting housing doesn't mean abandoning nature, and biodiversity isn't achieved through one brick for one species, but it can be boosted through green roofs and walls, hedgerows, trees, wildlife corridors, ponds and wetlands, bat boxes, bird boxes, habitat bricks, and many, many more things. This government hasn't abandoned birds, and neither has this Labour group. But in reality, the Labour government's taken a bird's eye view, ensuring it protects nature and builds the housing that are needed. Mr. Mayor, let's not get in a flap. Let's support homes, support habitats, and choose meaningful biodiversity gains so that we can truly make the difference that this borough needs.
Well, okay, so there appears to be no other speakers, so we're going to return to Councillor Curling as I move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure there's much more to say on this issue, but it's a pity we haven't got a bit more support in the chamber, and we seem to have a bit of a change of policy with the Labour group now, perhaps in favour of the Useley developments, as they're all 100% affordable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very well. So now we now come to a vote on the motion. So may I ask those in favour please to show. Thank you. And those against? Okay. The motion is lost. On rapidly to motion 11.3. Councillor Bunger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we are not debating a motion, we are performing an autopsy. They inherited £70 million worth of usable reserves. Those reserves are now minus £34.5 million. A £104.5 million collapse in the borough's financial stability. And yet, we were told something very different. So let's take a short walk through the Conservatives' own words, a perfectly preserved archive of confidence, complacency and catastrophical financial misjudgment. September last year, Councillor Goddard. We are in a stable financial position. There is stability. There is strength. A year later, Cabinet papers described the position as unsafe and unsustainable. He also said bankruptcy, Section 114, is not going to happen here. Tonight, they rely on the Labour government support to avoid exactly that. November last year, Councillor Bianco. Hillingdon's financial position remains the envy of many London boroughs. Tonight, they rely. A year later, they have joined the very councils he mocked, relying on EFS to survive. January this year, Councillor Goddard. EFS is a sticking plaster, no responsible administration would want it. He also said EFS is a bailout for failure. Well, we are now applying for that very bailout. By his own definition, the administration has failed. February at the Budget Council, Councillor Edwards on EFS. It cedes control to bean counters, too high a price to pay. He has now paid it. Councillor Goddard, this budget is robust, our reserves are adequate. Both proven to be untrue. Councillor Palmer, we have ensured that our social care services are fully funded to meet demand. Social care overspends and are now tearing the budget apart. Councillor Tuckwell, this budget for growth built on foundations of financial stability. That foundation collapsed within 6 months. Councillor O'Brien, the safety valve agreement is a testament to our robust management plan. It is now part of the comprehensive financial failure engulfing the council. July this year, Councillor Edwards, to suggest we are facing a financial cliff edge is scaremongering. We have robust reserves and a clear plan for savings. He was wrong. The auditors were right. Councillor Goddard, we have maintained a healthy level of reserves. This is a golden legacy of Conservative financial management. Calling it a golden legacy while reserves plunged to minus 34.5 million isn't optimism, it's delusional. September this year, Councillor Bianco, EFS is prudent stewardship. A total U-turn from saying it was a failure. And my personal favourite, Councillors Edward and Goddard provided steady hands at the tiller. Well, that didn't age well. One forced out last week and the other steered us straight into an iceberg. So much for voting down Labour's motion of no confidence in September. Mr Mayor, the evidence is irrefutable. These quotes aren't political spin, they're recorded assurances that everything was fine, when every number, every audit, every warning said the opposite. They show denial, failed leadership, and a culture that ignored officers, auditors, and reality. And they lead to one simple truth. This administration told residents everything was stable, right up until the moment the council ran out of money. So this motion is not political theatre. It is a necessary response to institutional failure. We need a Section 114 report because the budget is no longer robust or has adequate reserves. A Section 5 report because governance has failed. A public interest report because residents deserve to know how £104.5 million vanished. An emergency financial recovery team because the council can't fix itself. A Wednesbury compliance report because members must understand the legal risk of voting for unreasonable budgets. Mr Mayor, for the past year, this administration told residents everything was fine, while the reserves disappeared faster than their credibility. Let me finish with this. The Conservatives did not just fail the finances, they failed the truth. And tonight, the truth has caught up with them. I move this motion.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I formally second and reserve my right to speak at the end. Thank you.
Okay, we're moved and seconded. So now, next we've got Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm speaking against this motion. The recommendations are wasteful and negative. If adopted, they would force busy officers to waste valuable time on random administration, time that should be spent improving Hillingdon's governance and finance systems. Hillingdon Labour's recommendations risk handing power to the Labour government, allowing them to raise even more taxes on Hillingdon residents and cut services that mandarins in Whitehall do not value. Hillingdon Labour's great idea is to nationalise Hillingdon Council, and we won't let them. The Wednesbury reports that are being mentioned are never used to test council budget decisions. To fail such principles, you need to be so outrageous to defy logic, and that's the logic of a reasonable person, not the logic of Hillingdon Labour. When councillors approved the budgets last February, we had a stack of papers, including the report from the then Section 151 officer. His summary was, and you can read this if you don't believe it, was that a balanced and lawful budget had been proposed as long as the actions set out in his report were implemented, and they are. The Audit Committee has been scrutinising the implementation of both the Governance Recommendations Improvement Programme and the Finance Modernisation Programme. members of the committee have been asking how, why and what is being done to achieve full stability. Good progress has been made, but the journey continues. As well as the audit committee, all select committees are continuing to scrutinise the budgets in their own area. Now, the recommendations putting pressure on officers to issue a Section 114 notice and a Section 5 report are not appropriate. Officers have legal duties to issue such reports when certain conditions are met. It is not for councillors to make these decisions, nor should councillors put pressure on officers to circumvent those legal duties and ignore the conditions as set out in law. The recommendation that mentions effective insolvency is just wrong. Local authorities cannot go into insolvency. They just cannot go bankrupt. It is impossible. Even if you want to play the game, Hillingdon Council has over £2 billion of assets. Putting the word effective in front of the I or the B word does not make it possible. Finally, recommendations that ask for the Labour government to be in charge of Hillingdon Council are massively far away from both the interests and the wants of Hillingdon residents. Hillingdon Labour wants to give the Labour government power to raise even more taxes from Hillingdon residents. ULEZ wasn't enough. Hillingdon Labour wants to give responsibility over our weekly bin collections and Christmas lights to a Labour government who do not care about residents' lives. We here on Hillingdon Conservatives are going to fight against this, and if Hillingdon Labour get their wishes, we're going to make sure they own those decisions. This is why every councillor should vote against this bad motion.
Thank you. Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak against this motion, which I consider to be pure political opportunism of the very worst kind. Councillor Mathers and I have had many conversations over the last couple of years about the prospect of a Section 114 notice and how disastrous that would be for the residents and the borough as a whole. During the discussions on the development of costed amendments to last year's budget, we agreed that as a responsible opposition, we would need to do whatever we could to avoid a Section 114 notice, including approaching the government for exceptional financial support. A Section 114 notice would mean a complete stop of all spending apart from the absolute essentials. It would also mean that our council would be run by officials from Whitehall who have very little knowledge of the borough. A Section 114 would also bind the hands and frustrate the programme of any incoming administration. A Section 114 would have a disastrous effect on residents, businesses, council staff and officers. And yet now we have the leadership of the Labour group calling for a 114 notice in this motion. Let's be clear, the Labour group are now calling for action that is in no one's interest on the opportunistic grounds that it will give them a short-term political advantage. This is the most irresponsible thing that the opposition can do. There is no doubt that the financial crisis is a Conservative-created crisis. Almost every council in the country is on the brink due to the excessive funding cuts by successive Conservative governments over the last 14 years. There are also issues specific to Hillingdon for which this administration must take responsibility. But at a time of financial crisis, the overriding consideration of all councillors from all parties should be to ensure that the services are being maintained for our residents, our staff are being looked after, and that everything is being done to avoid that Section 114 notice. A responsible opposition would be holding the administration to account, but also doing whatever they can to assist in measures to avoid that dreaded 114. I doubt very much that the Labour group leadership are moving this motion in an effort to safeguard vital services that our residents depend on. I believe it is much more to do with cheap political point scoring, which won't help Labour's electoral prospects, but will damage the residents of this borough. Mr. Mayor, this motion is the height of irresponsible political opportunism, and I will not be supporting it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Manns.
Thank you. I thought they were clapping for me to start my speech. Mr. Mayor, nothing illustrates the total financial collapse of this Conservative administration More starkly than this, Hillingdon's reserves have fallen from plus 70 million to minus 34.5 million, a 104.5 million downfall. This is not a blip, this is not volatility, this is the financial equivalent of driving a Rolls-Royce off a cliff and acting surprised it didn't bounce. And it gets worse, 14.1 million in counting adjustments dating back to 2014 quietly wiped out reserves before this year even began. The real usable starting point, just £6.7 million. That's not a safety net, that's a financial tightrope. This collapse didn't happen by accident. It happened because of years of poor decisions. Library services cut, bin collection scrimped on, street cleaning reduced, enforcement depleted, Beck Theatre ruined, taxpayers are still paying for it, RAGC decimated with zero savings delivered, and the man who failed to deliver savings and improvements, Councillor Lavery, is now in charge of council finances. Add to that the astronomical SEND deficit of £78 million, high-cost home acquisitions instead of strategic building, and the GOS system disaster that frustrated councillors and officers is now being scrapped because it simply didn't work. And let's not forget the February 2025 Section 25 report, warning the budget was not robust and carried high risk. That warning wasn't heeded, it was ignored. Now, the question residents are asking, the question this council must answer: where has the money gone? And when will they stop non-essential spends like the Conservative propaganda called Hillingdon People? You cannot burn through £104.5 million in reserves, uncover 14.1 million of past adjustments, start the year with £6.7 million and pretend nothing needs investigating. That is why we need a report in the public interest, not another glossy internal narrative, not another political press release. Independent auditors in public telling residents exactly what happened, how it happened, and who is responsible. Because tonight, colleagues, this £104.5 million collapse is the smoking crater that proves what residents already know. The finances did not fail by chance. They failed by choice. And a council that has lost £104.5
Can you wind up, please,
owes
Councillor
residents
Manners?
one thing above all, the full truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'm going to put Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members may have noticed we've crossed the 10:30 threshold, and at that point the meeting will end and remaining business will be moved forward to a date and time normally decided by the Mayor or the next meeting, and that would be this motion. However, the Mayor may call on a member to propose that the motion continue, the meeting continue, and to propose in what order remaining business should take place.
Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given that the items within this motion have largely been answered throughout the questions during this evening, the fact that each of the parties has spoken on this motion, the leading actress from Hillingdon Labour has given her performance, I think it would be right that under closure motion 1411A.2 that the question now be put and we move to the vote, as it's clearly going to be voted on political lines.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to disappoint Councillor Mills, but at this point you're invited to propose that the meeting should continue and what to do with the remaining business. If you want to put a closure motion, that would come after members have considered that the meeting continue.
Okay, I will propose that this motion be completed now and go to the vote, and that there's no further business after this.
Okay, it would be that we continue with this motion,
yes.
Basically, is what you're proposing. That needs to be seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
And then a vote.
Seconded, reserve my rights.
Okay, right. And those in favour?
You're voting on whether the meeting should continue past 10:30 and we continue with this motion.
Okay, that's carried. That's carried, right.
And at this point, you could now move a closure motion if you wish to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will now move closure motion 1411A Part 2 that the question now be put.
And when a motion or question now be put, a vote is taken immediately if seconded.
Second that.
Thank you. And provided that all political groups have had the opportunity to speak, which they have, and in the Mayor's opinion there has been sufficient debate.
I consider there has.
Okay, so you're voting now on whether the question should now be put.
So those in favour? Those against?
Mr. Mayor, that is carried, and when a motion like that is passed, the mover of the original motion has a right of reply before we vote on the motion.
Councillor Pongerer.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, and just so that Councillor Dennis and Councillor Curling realise and take a little bit of attention to detail, I'm not asking for a Section 114 notice at all. No, I'm not. I'm asking for a Section 114 report. Two totally different things. So, before we vote, let me end with one simple question. If this administration truly believes it has nothing to hide, then why won't they support this motion? A Section 114 report, a public interest report, independent oversight, these are not political weapons, they are sunlight. And any competent, confident administration would welcome sunlight. What are they afraid of? What don't they want residents to see? We've heard Councillor Edwards' now familiar fantasy economics about Labour's fair funding settlement, as though it was some imaginary windfall that they were owed. Let's be clear. It is the Labour government that is finally delivering the fair funding settlement local authorities desperately need because the Conservatives refused to do so. Councillor Edwards voted for austerity. His Conservative colleagues voted for austerity. The government cut local government to the bone for over a decade, and now he stands here fantasising about what his budget could have looked like if his own party had done exactly what he'd supported. It is political amnesia of the most brazen kind, equivalent to torching your own house and complaining the fire brigade arrived too late. Mr. Mayor, while other boroughs had made hard decisions, built reserves, invested in STEM, strengthened governance and avoided statutory failure, this administration blamed everyone but themselves. Auditors, officers, inflation, Trump, anyone. And now they want us to believe that £104.5 million collapse in reserves just happened to them. It didn't. It was done by them. And while Councillor Goddard has been positioned as a convenient fall guy, one domino didn't topple £104.5 million. This was a chain reaction, years in the making, a system weakened by denial, spin and gaslighting at every level of leadership. They want one person to take the blame because it hides the truth. The failures were systemic, cultural and shared. Section 24 report told us that. They want one person, so they told residents we are robust, right up until the day the numbers proved we were not robust, but bust. So again, I ask, if they've done nothing wrong, why won't they support an independent investigation? Why won't they support transparency? What exactly are they so desperate to keep buried? Tonight you can choose sunlight, truth and accountability, or you can stand in the shadows with them. I know which side I am on.
Thank you, Councillor Punger. So we now come to the vote on the motion. So I'm now going to ask those in favour to show. Thank you. And those against? The motion is lost.
Mr. Mayor, just before you close the meeting, could I remind members, referring to the very back of the paper, and ask you, once the Mayor has departed, to remain in your places just for a few moments while we convene a quick meeting of the Resident Services Select Committee, as we do at the AGM. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting. Have a wonderful Christmas, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind taking your seats, and ask the members of the Resident Services Select Committee, Councillors Davies, Dott, Gaelic, Gohill, Core, Smallwood and Singh, to stand and call for a nomination for chair of that committee.